Who is the most famous person you've met? Story 1. Used to be a triangle messenger, bicycle messenger in Pittsburgh, and would deliver scripts to WQED, the local broadcast channel. One day I was inside delivering a package and none other than Fred Rogers walked up and introduced himself. He introduced himself to me. Not only that, he was very engaging in asking questions. A true kind individual. The rub of it is about a month later I am back at the studios delivering another package, and Mr. Rogers yells across the lobby, "Hey, my name." I'm floored. Here's this guy totally in the moment, being a human being. He was authentic and truly wished to engage with me on a personal level. I will never forget the heart that guy had. From what I've been told, he was this way 100% true human. I grew up on the same street as a couple of Fred Rogers' grandkids, and one of them was my best friend. I got to spend a good bit of time with him, and he was wildly authentic. He'd call himself my other grandfather and was no different than his TV persona. It was just him. One time, after a long day together, I took a nap on his couch while he played piano. Definitely a core memory, though I had no idea how significant that was at the time. Also a native Pittsburgher, my friend's dad during his roofing days was trying to hitchhike a ride home, and Mr. Rogers picked him up and dropped him wherever he was going. Imagine a television star at the height of his popularity picking up a grubby roofer in workwear. If that doesn't say everything about what kind of man Fred Rogers was, I don't know what else would. I have a very similar story. I did some promotional work for WQED. Fred Rogers remembered my name several days later after being introduced to him and asked about my brother by name, who he had also met. He had a minute to talk to anyone who wanted to talk to him. He said he liked the work I was doing and was very positive with praise. I was in my late 20s and later in my office. I got sniffy and teary-eyed because Mr. Rogers complimented me. Honestly, imagine what Mr. Rogers would be like. That's how he was. My mom grew up where Mr. Rogers was from, and my dad always thought that walking into the house, taking off your outdoor shoes and putting on your indoor shoes, then taking off your jacket and putting on a sweater was just a Mr. Rogers thing. Then he met my mom's family and realized everyone in her family did that too. My dad never met Mr. Rogers but knew at that moment that he was as genuine as it gets. I thought everyone did that. One doesn't wear outdoor shoes or a coat indoors, but one still needs shoes for stability and toe protection and a sweater for warmth in cold seasons. So why would anyone not do this? Must admit though, that I'm also from that area. Also note that older generations had experienced many more contagious diseases and thus developed strategies for avoiding them than younger generations had, at least prior to the pandemic. For example, this is why old houses have brass doorknobs, unless some jag took them out and replaced them with some germ-friendly rubbish. Retired legal assistant in Pittsburgh. I loved sitting outside at lunch and watching the triangle messengers riding all over the place, whizzing by in and out of traffic. Every time I was with one in the elevator, I loved to ask how many miles they rode that week, because I was always trying to up my mileage on the GAP trail just to be able to ride maybe 10 at a time. They were a great part of the hustle and bustle in the city in the 80s and 90s, and the skateboarders too. I think they're gone now, along with all the nice department stores. When I saw the old Kaufmans turn into a Target, a tiny part of my soul died. Story 2. My first job was working for Steve Irwin at his zoo. Got to meet him many times before he died. As a fellow Sunny Coast local, I remember seeing him feeding the crocs before he was famous. Dad had a few encounters with him through his work and said how genuine he was. His death absolutely rocked the area. At school the next day, we all made cards for his family, and one of the teachers dropped them off at the memorial outside the zoo. I wrote an email to Steve in the mid to late 90s when his wife was pregnant. My wife was pregnant at the same time. A friend at work and I were fans of his, and I just wanted to let him know how much I appreciated him. I received a response from Steve Irwin claiming that he wasn't Steve Irwin. I didn't and still don't believe that because of how enthusiastic he was about becoming a father, and he gave me the address at the zoo to send fan mail. I suspect it was a personal email address he was trying to keep private. I sent a message to the zoo and received a $1 off coupon for my next visit. I live in Seattle. I think there was also a postcard that had a thank you note written by, based on the handwriting, a young woman. I know I still have that stuff somewhere in a closet. Someday I'd like to use that coupon. I don't think it had an expiration date. I've met him quite a few times whilst living in Weipa. At one meeting, we got a photo, and Mum had it pinned to the fridge for the last 20-odd years. My favorite meeting, though, was when he was transporting Weipa, the croc, back to the zoo. He brought it to my school. Steve and the team had Weipa tied up and tuckered out, and Steve let us all touch him on the back whilst he chatted about Croc's safety, and why it was necessary to relocate him. He was a little too aggressive. I met Steve in the men's room at an Australian tourism convention in LA. I was at the urinal and he came up beside me and stood out like a sore thumb as we were all dressed in tuxedos, but not him. Nope, he was in his khakis. When we walked over to the sink to wash up, I said, "Feel better, Steve?" And he lets out a very enthusiastic, "Oh yeah, mate." A truly awesome dude, and glad to have had some small talk with him. Story 3. I screwed up Ron Howard's lunch order one time. He and his family were golfing and I worked in the golf club bar, and they came in for a quick bite to eat. Not a single thing went right, but they were all extremely nice and understanding. 10 out of 10 would embarrass myself in front of them again. He's a kind and humble guy. I went to public school with his kids and was a normal and active neighborhood dad. Dropped his kids off at school most mornings. I met him later in life in a professional setting, and he was very curious about others and just loved talking about music and film. It was a fun hang. Can confirm that the Howards are sweethearts. I met Bryce at a con this summer and she was the sweetest. I'm a singer and I sing for the celebs any chance I get. I was performing some Frozen songs for Josh Gad, who was seated next to her. She noticed and gave me a round of applause. I met her the next day and her attendant remembered me and gave me an autograph and a selfie free of charge. She was so nice and down to earth. My dad met her too and told her how big of a fan of Ron he is. Overall, an amazing interaction. I had an interview with Ron Howard and Brian Grazer once. The only problem was that 3 of our lights were dead when they showed up. Classic 4 gray Ari travel suitcase with 2 300s and 2 650s. All I had to light this interview was one 650, Ari and some shiny bouncy board. I used the 650 as a soft key light and used the spill from one side to bounce on the shiny board as a hair light. They walked in, saw our bare bones setup, and gave a nod of approval, as if to say, "Interesting, but I guess it's okay." We showed them the monitor for approval and they both said, "Yeah, sure, looks good." I was a bit proud of that. Story 4. I was teaching and took my class to Ellis Island and the 9/11 Museum. A kid said Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is on our ferry coming back from the island. It was actually him. I took a deep breath and went over to him and his agent and said I had 50 students that would absolutely love to meet you if you can. Dude stood out in the rain and said hello and took pictures with all of my students. He walked down the street afterward and was high-fiving people who recognized him. Class act. I was trying to get into an all-NBA party at the Boston Garden during the 2008 finals, ex-players and such. As I stood in line, I felt this presence behind me and I turned and I was literally looking at someone's belt buckle. I scan up and it's Kareem. I give a quick nod and turn back around. Could be the biggest human I've ever seen. I didn't get in. He did. I've met dozens of famous actors, politicians, sports stars, etc., but this reminds me of meeting Christy Hind of The Pretenders. I took a girl I was friends with to Atlanta to see The Pretenders. After the show, the girl insisted that we could go outside the Fox Theater and meet them. I doubted it, but sure enough, there were 2 girls by a side door and out came Chrissy. She signed autographs for the 4 of us and the 2 girls left. Then she stood there with an umbrella for at least half an hour asking about my band and encouraging the girl I was with to pursue her dream of performing. She squeezed us under a little overhang to keep us dry while she used her umbrella to help. Finally, her manager found her and insisted that her driver had been waiting far too long. She hugged my friend and gave me a kiss on the cheek while telling me to take care of my friend. Miss you, Marcy. I hope you did finally get on stage. Story 5. I got to meet Danny DeVito. I have no more need for other celebrities. My sister's roommate was a Hollywood nanny. Tom Cruise fired her for getting too emotionally close to his kids. Anyway, she would bring the kids to on-set daycare some days so the parents could pick them up right after. She ran into a lot of celebrities, literally. None of them talked to her except for Danny and Rhea. They would just be generally nice humans where the others ignored her completely since she was just the nanny. She also inspired the show The Nanny and sued them over not giving her credit. Settled out of court, of course. Never worked again after that. I did not meet Danny DeVito in person, but I got to talk to him on the phone. My sister has special needs, and she went to a private boarding school in the early 90s. Her roommate was actually Ted Danson's daughter, who is a lovely man, as is his wife. My parents became social with them for years via school functions, fundraisers, etc. When my sister was 12, Ted invited her to come home with his daughter from Boston to California for a birthday weekend getaway. The girls got to go shopping and have lunch and a sleepover. Danny DeVito is a neighbor and friend of Ted. Danny and his wife Rhea also took my sister and Ted's daughter to lunch for the next day and bowling. They signed autographs for my sister to take home and called us on the phone, and he was wonderful to us. In return, my parents hosted the next year's birthday party in New York City near our house and invited their children to come out and have dinner and stay in Times Square. My dad was friends with him and saw him in disguise at Disneyland after Batman Returns came out. My dad told him he took me to see the movie, and Danny looked at him like he was crazy and was like, "You took your son to see that movie?" My dad told him I handled it well. Wrong, I was scared the second those skullbiker dudes showed up, gave me nightmares for weeks. But I don't care, cause it's one of the reasons I'm such a Bat fan today. Story 6. I smoked a cigarette with Joan Jett back in the day. She's a rad lady. I met her once in the elevator of a building she lived in on Long Island. Introduced myself and told her I loved her music. She shook my hand and told me to call her Joni. Super cool and nice. Joan was my very first concert back in 1983. About 20 years later, I got a chance to meet her briefly when she played the Warped Tour. I shook her hand and told her that it was the first concert I ever saw, and she winked at me and said, "I'm glad I could be your first." Then she went out and played about 18 songs in half an hour. Just bam, bam, bam. It was a perfect day. She cussed out our all-volunteer stage crew back in 2012. Why? Because she was doing warm-ups and we were watching from the side of the venue before they began letting customers in. Not a free show. I haven't given a single crap about her since. My friend's mom is a journalist and worked around lots of punk and rock bands. She has encountered Joan a lot over the years and was friendly with one of her band members at one point. So when they played in her city, she'd usually stop in at the show or hotel they were at to catch up with the bandmate. Her stories of Joan always being a bitch crack me up. Joan knows my friend's mom. Let's call her Julie. So she'll ignore it when Julie says, "Hi, Joni." But after Joan gets done telling her band members to stop chatting and get back to work, she'll turn and go, "Bye, Julie." I saw her at an Orioles game. She was sitting in the front row just to the right of home plate, and she was in Baltimore because she had a show the next night at Camden Yards. In an effort to promote that concert, they briefly showed her in her seat on the big screen one time between innings. She should have just smiled and waved. It would have been the easiest ad ever for her show. But instead, she was livid, which was hilarious because it was all shown on a gigantic screen in center field. She and her group got up and left right afterward. Story 7. I met Snoop Dogg and he signed an album I bought from him. He called me Young Tiger Woods and then told me that he would see me at the top. Said he would be there waiting for me as a musician. I was over the moon. And yes, he smelled like straight gas. Can't imagine Snoop being anything but friendly. The dude is so high, all he knows is chill. Met him randomly in 2009. I was in my mid-20s at an entertainment company's Christmas party where I went as my besties plus one. He performed and swiftly made an exit afterward. We wanted a photo with him, so we somehow made it through the massive crowd and followed his entourage all the way to the exit. I forget how we got his attention, but he saw us and stopped his crew from leaving. So then we asked, "Can we get a photo with you?" He said, "Of course, get over here." We got our photo, thanked him, and that was that. Sounds boring recanting it now, but it was the highlight of our night. He was really nice. Then again, we were two very cute girls. I once literally ran into him in Times Square trying to walk to the subway from work. There was a huge knot of people blocking the way and I just kinda hustled my way in, like you do. And then all of a sudden, it was like a forest clearing with Snoop Dogg in the middle. We stared at each other and then I just said, "Excuse me," and went around him through the other side of the crowd. I met Snoop Dogg at a gas station in LA around 6 a.m. on a weekday. He walked out of his, I think it was a black Tahoe or a Cadillac SUV. I remember him walking out of his car and all this smoke was coming out from the inside of the car. He was smoking weed at 6 a.m. and it wasn't even legal back then. He was so cool. He signed autographs and talked to people. His car had a blue bandana hanging from the rearview mirror. Story 8. Tom Hanks. He had a lot of questions about the owl I had on my arm. Oh, I also met Tom Hanks. I had one of those crappy street canvassing jobs, fundraising for HRC. I saw him and I called out my usual, "Do you have a minute for gay rights?" And he said, "Gay rights? I'm the biggest supporter of gay rights there is," and kept walking. I met Tom Hanks at Jimmy's Famous Seafood in Baltimore, Maryland when I was working there as a busboy about 18 years ago. He was on a huge RV traveling to all of his favorite baseball team games. They called ahead of time and rented out the back of the restaurant with about 20 people, pretty much all of the menu could offer. I was able to get my Forrest Gump DVD signed by him when he was leaving. He was a lot taller than I expected him to be. I also am an environmental educator, but now just a teacher, but I house education owls and hawks and falcons for a nonprofit. One time I was at an event with birds and John Corbett was there. I really wanted him to come to our booth, but alas, he did not. Also, as a zookeeper, I never got to do any of the cool celebrity behind the scenes that others got to. I am jealous that you met Tom Hanks. Story 9. Muhammad Ali shook my hand and held his fist up to me when I was 12. My good friend and former boss grew up in Chicago on the South Side. One day, he and his young friends were walking near a gym where Muhammad was working out and met him. He told them to go to the library and get an education to become stronger, smarter people. Later in life, my friend was meeting a woman for breakfast in downtown Chicago. He walked in early and noticed Muhammad sitting with some friends eating. He recounted the story and explained how it inspired him to get his engineering degree and PE license and start his own construction company. Muhammad, eternally the gentleman, said that my friend and the woman he was meeting could sit at his table and eat with him. My friend said he had never seen such a look of shock as when he motioned to his friend to join them and she realized who she was eating with. Very similar story, I played one of his grandkids in an indoor soccer game. After the game, my mom told me to go shake that man's hand and pointed at Ali. I walked over and he told me I played great. As an adult who understands who said that, it's in my top lifetime compliments. I was 12 or 13. I was in a room alone with Muhammad Ali once and didn't realize it. He was really old and in a chair in the corner. I was at his home in Arizona taping some interviews with his wife. I went into the kitchen to plug in/unplug an extension cord. As we were leaving, my coworker said, "Did you say hi to the champ?" He had seen him there. I hadn't. Best that I didn't bother him. I know exactly how you felt. Muhammad Ali shook my hand, squeezed and held it tightly, then created a fist with his other hand, gritted his teeth and pretended that he was about to take a swing at me. He was much younger, back in '88. He was touring the country at shopping malls promoting a cologne. I have an autographed picture and a black ball cap that he signed in gold pen. I'll never forget that day. Story 10. I met Linkin Park a while back. Chester was such a kind and gentle guy. I'm not a fan of their music, but the way Chester interacted with fans, especially those with disabilities, shows he was such an amazing human. His singing at Chris Cornell's funeral was something else. His death genuinely made me sad for a long time. Linkin Park was the first band that blew my little teenage mind back in 2000. I used to just sit in my room blasting Hybrid Theory, and later when Meteora came out, that was my first concert. I was 32 years old and at work when I found out Chester died and I cried like a baby. All my coworkers were older and southern, so they were like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? LOL. Anyway, I still get very sad about it when I hear one of their songs. Their music helped me through years and years of mental health challenges, and it's just so sad that Chester was suffering as he was. I truly hope he's at peace." While I was thinking about my answer to the question, Chester was definitely high on the list. I was a casual fan of Linkin Park and happened to see them a few times because I had free tickets or they were opening for someone else. After random run-ins with him and other guys in the band, we officially met through a mutual friend of ours. Chester was seriously one of the kindest and most amazing souls I've ever met in my life. I never describe anyone like this, but with him, it just fits. We saw each other more often, and I can say we became friends over the years. I was absolutely devastated and still am when I heard the news. There aren't enough words to describe what a light he was to everyone around him, and I miss him every single day. I have heard several random people who have had interactions with Chester in varying capacities talk about him, and they all say he was sort of a person to go out of his way to be nice, helpful, friendly, or supportive for no other reason than to be nice. I remember when he died, a bunch of my friends all got together and just talked about it. I have never experienced another celebrity death that hit me or those close to me like him. Story 11. Adam Levine. Huge prick and a terrible tipper. I served him and his wife when they were on vacation in Hawaii, and they ate at the restaurant bar where I was working. I was very chill with them and she was really nice, but he just chain-smoked cigarettes outside and was on the phone the whole time. He made us reopen the restaurant for him, his band, and about 10 supermodels. This was 2008-ish. When I first told him we were closed, he actually said, "Do you know who I am?" I told him, "We're still closed." It was 2 a.m., but my manager was starstruck, so I had to stay until 4, then redo side work. She comped everything they ordered, several $100s, and they left me a $20 tip. I heard this from a few people, and it's disappointing. I knew him from a friend whose older brother was friends with him growing up. He was always cool back then, and I used to tell him that they were going to be huge. He would laugh, and then I'd tell him to remember the little people and be nice after they got big. I ended up moving overseas, so I lost touch with that group as Maroon 5 started to blow up, and I guess he did not remember. Story 12. When John Wayne went to the local drugstore, he would buy all the kids an ice cream cone. One time I asked for a triple scoop. He handed it to me and I promptly dropped it. He looked down at me, shook his head a little, smiled and said, "Sorry, little lady, now you only get 2 scoops," and bought me another cone. John Wayne called me Little Lady. My dad was the biggest John Wayne fan as a kid. We asked him and an older relative if they remembered where they were when World War II ended. He was only 6. He said he was in a theater watching a John Wayne movie and someone announced the end of the war and everyone left and celebrated in the street. And that, being 6, he didn't understand what was going on and was mad he didn't get to finish the movie. Story 13. Rosa Parks. A few members of my high school band got to play a little concert for her. I have no idea how the school arranged that, but it was very cool. A woman I know from college is from LA and has a dad in the entertainment industry, and I asked her if she had any memorable encounters with fame. The only one she mentioned was the time Rosa Parks had dinner at her house. Story 13. Dave Gilmour from Pink Floyd. Flew into my small hometown to buy my mother's ex-boyfriend's Mustang airplane. I honestly didn't know who he was. My best friend was a big fan and thought I was pulling a joke on him till he saw him. It was the end of November and he actually joined my mother's family for Thanksgiving dinner. Out of all the celebrities I've wanted to meet, David Gilmour is by far the top of my list. I went to a Roger Waters show and that was cool and all, but I would have paid 10 times the price to see David jam on a Strat. Story 15. David Bowie was dreamy. I met Bowie on a hiking trail of all places. It was near the house he used to have in Catskills. I was going down the mountain and he was going up, so it was a quick hey and a head nod. Classic hiker exchange. The only thing that stood out was that he was wearing a white linen shirt and designer jeans while hiking. It was a random Tuesday, so there weren't many people. As I was walking toward him, I was like, huh, this guy looks like David Bowie. And then as I got closer, I was like, holy crap, it's David Bowie. I used to work on a TV show in New York, and we shot outside his place in Manhattan. He was the nicest guy. Stopped, said hello to all of us, grunted and hung out, waiting for his wife. Talked like a regular guy. Then we saw him again a couple of weeks later, the same thing, and remembered our names. We were floored. Saw him sporadically moving forward. I once read the nicest story about David Bowie meeting an autistic kid with social anxiety. He mimed removing a mask from his face and told the kid that it was his mask that he wore to feel safe, but that he didn't need it anymore and gave it to the child. Such a beautiful and creative way to engage with them. The world lost a little bit of magic in 2016. Story 16. Macho Man Randy Savage is what I think. I also met George Bush and Cher one time. However, Macho Man won. I used to work out at a gym in South Omaha back in the 70s and 80s called Doug's Gym and Fitness. It was a massive dump with a leaky roof, rarely any heat, and 0 AC. It was owned by Doug Lindsay, who used to go by the name Doug Gilbert, and several other handles. All the WWE guys used to stop in there to train when they were in Omaha and talk to Doug. So I met most of those guys and had all of their autographs. I gave those to a friend who was a huge wrestling fan. That prick Hulk Hogan came in one day and was being an asshole to everyone, pushing people to get off of equipment he wanted to use until he messed with the wrong guy. This guy was 20 and had been Mr. Hawaii at 18. He told Hulk if he could outbench press him, he'd leave, and Hulk could stay. But if he lost, he had to get the hell out. Hulk barely got 405. The kid did 500. On his way out, Doug told him to never come back, and Doug was super easygoing most of the time. Story 17. I filled Jerry Springer's water glass once when I was a busboy in a small northern Michigan town. As luck would have it, I am not my brother's father. I had forgotten all about Jerry Springer until this comment. I rang him out when I was at work once, at a sports store a couple of months before he passed away. He spent like $3,000 on a basketball hoop for his nephew or something. He was nice and chill. I told him, "Hey man, it's awesome to meet you. My mom wouldn't let me watch your show as a kid." He let out a big laugh, and we said our goodbyes. Funny interaction. He was a regular at a restaurant where I waited tables. He would hang out and read a book. Always pleasant and a good tipper. I waited on Alice Cooper, who has frequented the restaurant, Ed Asner, Brian Dennehy, Billie Jean King, a frequent regular, Mary Gross, Ed Paschke, the biggest asshole I have ever waited on, and Richard Bull, many times, of Little House on the Prairie fame. I've met a bunch of people too because my husband is in film and TV. Story 18. Sebastian Vettel. I met him too. I wanted him to sign my Wales football shirt, which was unfortunately red for him. He checked the logo to check it wasn't a Ferrari, and then he signed it. Also, at that very moment, Michael Schumacher rode past us on a moped and waved. It was at the track at Francorchamps about 10 years ago. I also met him. He and another person, manager or family member maybe, I have no idea, came to the gelato shop in Austin, Texas where I worked in 2017. They got a couple of scoops, tipped very well, then sat on the store's front porch until we closed at midnight. We had to ask them to leave so that we could finish closing. Nice guy, just wanted to eat his gelato in peace. Story 19. When I was a kid, my mom got me into the best public school where I lived, despite being out of the district. She'd take me every morning to a drop-off point outside of an expensive gated community in LA where my friend's brother picked me up and drove me every morning to school. One morning, my mom noticed a black Mercedes behind us. This became a daily occurrence. She goes, "Holy crap, that's Mick Fleetwood." My parents were obsessed with Fleetwood Mac. In typical my mom fashion, she gets out to go talk to him one morning and, of course, tells her life story. A few weeks later, business as usual, but I noticed Mick get out of the car that day. He walks up to our window with a beautiful photo of Fleetwood Mac, signed by everyone in the band, with a personal message to my dad, who was in the hospital after a near-fatal motorcycle accident. It was the nicest and most kind gesture, and I'll always remember that. I need to find that picture and post it. Story 20. Seth Rogen. My girlfriend and I were walking through Central Park. A couple with a dog were walking towards us and my girlfriend, a mad dog person, complimented their dog. They stopped so that she could pat it, and I started making conversation with the guy. He had sunglasses and a hat on, so I couldn't make him out. But once he laughed, it clicked, and I accidentally blurted out, "Holy crap, you're Seth Rogen." He was charming, friendly, and amused that it was his dog that got the initial attention and not him. We got a photo of him and the dog and then went about our day. Story 21. Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown. They lived in the same building as my grandma in the 90s. They got on the elevator my friend and I were on. He and I looked at each other like, OMFG. Before we got out, I said to Whitney, "We really like your music," and she said, "Thank you." Bobby was just standing there the whole time with shades on. Did volunteer work at the White House back in the 90s, and Whitney Houston sang in an outside reception in a tent in the Rose Garden. Her voice filled the tent without a mic and was the purest sound I had ever heard. How much volume could come from such a petite, beautiful person was simply amazing. Definite life memory. What's the pettiest reason you won't date someone over? Having the same name as my mother. Her name was Tamara. She goes by Tammy. What's your point? A person who uses a speakerphone in a room filled with people, or on the bus. Hell, those are nightmare people. Or blasts music or YouTube vids. Like seriously, your phone came with headphones. That crap is rude. Clapping when the plane lands. My entire plane did this once. I'm guilty too. But to be fair, it was the captain's second attempt trying to land in the middle of a huge thunderstorm. That was some scary crap. Also, there were a lot of Italians on that plane. That's the context I usually see it in, a tough land. He once came with his eyes open and crossed. Just really freaked me out. I could never get the picture of his face out of my mind after that. I'm gonna use that for next time. That's so damn funny. Though it's petty, I can imagine not being able to get that out of my head during the do. I broke up with a guy because he ate all of my corn dogs. I was working a 12-hour shift, he refused to get a job, and all through my shift I was just excited that I could go home and eat a corn dog. That guy and his friends ate all 24 corn dogs within the 12 hours that I was working. They had previously done this with my DiGiorno's and lunch meat. But this was on another level. Don't mess with my corn dogs. Over corn dogs? I would have broken it off over not getting a job. I was young with self-esteem issues. Looking back, I should have left him long before the corn dogs. No regrets though. My mom still refers to it as the corn dog incident, lol. I know a girl who won't date a person if they're born during a certain month. Something to do with scorpions and aquariums. Oh god, not the astrologists! I would never date an astrologist. Chews with their mouth open. My wife chewed with her mouth open. She also had a penchant for putting other guys' peens in it too, which is why she's been promoted to ex-wife. I'm so sorry, friend. I hope you're okay. Having to eat that many meals around a bad-mannered person must have been torture. This girl was beautiful, driven, and intelligent. We got along well. She was perfect except that she would snap her fingers whenever someone would say something she liked. Every conversation is peppered with snaps. She'd do it instead of applauding at concerts too. Eventually, I realized that this couldn't be in my life. Overly active on social media. I was in a hotel with my ex, and we were brunching. The brunch was very expensive, but it was all you can eat. As we finished, she stood up and got the most delicious food from the buffet again. Even a French toast, specially cooked for her with chocolate on it. Then she got coffee and orange juice, a few chopped fruits, and made a photo of it to post on Snapchat and Instagram. Then she stood up and said she was ready to go. I couldn't believe it. What did you say to her? I have refused to date 2 girls because I didn't like their voices. Like they were just a little bit nasal and one was a little croaky too. In retrospect, it's actually because I was just looking for an excuse because I was super anxious. They were nice. I don't know, someone's voice, you have to listen to them all the time. If their voice is going to irritate the hell out of you, too nasal, squeaky, NJ accent, etc., that seems like a legit reason to nope out of there. I'm from New Jersey. No wonder no one will date me. If she idolizes the Joker and Harley Quinn's relationship. I watched Suicide Squad and now I know all about Harley and Joker. Such romance. They literally cut out a scene of him smacking her because they thought it would be too much. I wish they had kept it for this reason. They are the villains for a reason. He tucked his sweater into his jeans. That's reasonable. Most people don't want to date serial killers. There comes a time in life when a man must decide, am I a tucker or not? Each must decide for himself, but me, I chose not tucking, for I am no serial killer. I once started texting a guy from Tinder who seemed okay at first. He was quite good looking and he definitely took care of himself. Every time he'd pop up on text to say hi, he'd send a selfie of himself along with it. At first I replied, "Oh, haha, did you mean to send that?" And he said, "Yes, like what you see?" So I kind of uncomfortably said, "Yeah, he's good looking." Then it happened like 2 or 3 times again, so I just stopped texting him. Was his name Gaston? No one posts selfies like Gaston. Who's your favorite artist? Pitbull. Mr. Worldwide! When she said, "I don't do computers." God, that infuriates me. I work as a tech support for a major bank and I get people who call in all the time for minor issues and are proud to be computer illiterate. Look, it's 2017. I understand that for some older people computers can and are pretty intimidating, but if you are under the age of 30 and are still computer illiterate, then you fall into one of 2 scenarios. 1, you're a moron, or 2, you're Kimmy Schmidt. The worst bit is when you're explaining simple, very simple instructions, and they cut you off and say that. My ideal response would be, how about you shut the frick up and try, you lazy, ignorant, and usually self-entitled ass? Which usually gets translated to, I'll send you a guide to follow. I instantly said nope when this guy told me he couldn't watch movies that were unrealistic. My favorite genres are fantasy and sci-fi, so no thank you. So he only watches biopics? Any action movie is unrealistic. I have no idea how he does that. I stopped asking after that. If the neck hole on his shirt is too wide. Honestly, this is probably the pettiest thing in this thread. The majority of these comments are semi-valid, but this? What the hell? Can I get some reasoning or a story? I imagine it's thinking about the long-term plan. If his head is that big, what will it be like giving birth to his children? Broke up with a girl after a week because she constantly talked about being British and saying every other sentence in a British accent. She was born in Kentucky. When he stops right after entering the bus or subway, halfway still in the entrance, or before or after going on or off an escalator. I got mad just reading this. Needs more slashes. She would constantly try to finish my sentences for me, sometimes not even sentences but words. For example, so I was eating a BLT sandwich. Her. Which? It was infuriating. We finish each other's sandwiches. There was one who told me I was cutting green peppers the wrong way. I was doing it the way that Gordon Ramsay does it, but with fewer steps. He cuts the entire top off, then the entire bottom, while I cut a side off, and then another side, so it trims closer to the stem while keeping the core intact so that you don't have to pick seeds out of it. What she didn't like was the fact that I cut long strips from the sides, then rotated them and diced them. I was making my own recipe that required pieces for a specific size. I let her cut a pepper just to see what she thought was right, and she more or less butchered the entire thing. We went our separate ways a week later. This one is actually hilarious to me. Of all the petty things to choose from, you both went with this guy can't cut a bell pepper. It's like next level pettiness from both of you. But for real though, glad you got rid of her. She obviously couldn't cut it. She also didn't think dinosaurs ever existed. If you drag your feet everywhere you go every day of your life, I probably won't like you. I'm looking at you, all of my coworkers. Stop complaining about having to get new boots every month. Just pick up your feet. It's because their boyfriends got them the Walmart brand. You'll probably die in all these comments, but in middle school, I broke up with a girl because she erased my Pokemon save file. I'm 28 and still see that as a legit reason. You don't screw with save files, especially when there are old event Pokemon on them. If she refers to herself as a princess, that is not petty, that is a red flag. Anyone who claims to be super intelligent but uses that to be pretentious or condescending. Sounds like 85% of Reddit. I broke up with a girl because she spelled a word so incorrectly that I couldn't look at her the same way any longer, and it ruined how I felt about her. We were texting each other during the day about the plans we had to go out for the night, and it went something like this. Me: hey, are we still on for tonight? Her: yes, I'm excited. Do you need me to bring anything? Me: no, I have everything we'll need, don't worry about it. Her: okay, cool, I've already picked out my outfit. Me: your what? Her: my outfit, for tonight. I tried to pick something you'd like. She was trying to say outfit. 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 I know it's petty, but I just honestly got so weirded out, and it sincerely changed my opinion and view of her enough to the point where I just couldn't stop thinking about it whenever we were together. We were only together for about 3 months, which isn't any less douchey of me, but yeah. I did the same thing with a guy who texted me, "We might as well," instead of "might as well." They can't fix their your and your typos. You're kidding me? Who would do something like this? There you go now, trying to be funny. She got into an argument with my brother, who was about to graduate to become a computer engineer, about how the desktop is only the monitor and that the tower wasn't part of the desktop at all. She would also say that the laptop had a foldable desktop. Oh Christ, she was a nightmare anyway. Seinfeld had the pettiest reasons for not dating people: for having man hands, for eating peas 1 pea at a time, for wearing the same dress every day, for being a low talker, for shing during a TV show, for saying, "That's funny," instead of laughing. "That's so funny." He kept saying "I seen" in this pompous voice that seemed to suggest that he was using correct grammar. That got old quickly. Went on a date to Buffalo Wild Wings. She ordered 20 wings. She ate maybe 7 of them. When it came time to pay, she didn't offer. I was gladly going to pay, nor did she want a doggy bag. Seeing all of that food go to waste was the deal breaker. It might seem petty to most people, but I think it says a lot about a person who is so willingly wasteful. Spoiled and selfish, in my opinion. Agreed, it wouldn't have bothered me if she had said anything about it, but when I asked if she wanted a box, her exact response was, nah. If they text me in all emojis, it seems lazy and unromantic. If it's at the end of the text message, then I am fine with it, but a whole text message in emojis? Yeah, not so much. Ancient Egyptians based their entire society around emojis, and they were an honorable and cultured people. She smelled. Not terrible, but there was a distinct smell when you were close to her. I couldn't stand it after 2 weeks. Bye-bye. That may have been a sign that you two weren't genetically compatible. Is there scientific evidence of this? Are you telling me that someone that is genetically compatible with that person wouldn't smell their BO? I'm not thrilled with people who are video game purists and shun casual gamers, like me. I don't mind if you're really into video games or play them more often or more seriously than I do, but it's just obnoxious when they brag about it and treat me as though I'm lesser because I prefer some light Mario over Dark Souls. If you haven't unlocked all the characters in Mario Party 7, you're just not worth my time. She told me that the Crystal Skull, number 4, was her favorite Indiana Jones movie. There were only 3 Indiana Jones movies. When they tell me they don't like dogs, just no. Hell no. If they're into conspiracies, I don't want to hear your crap about the moon being fake. What about the fact that black people are really just holograms? Had a friend try and date this girl. He said he was going to Canada for a wedding. Her response? I wouldn't want to go because I'd have to learn Chinese. He said that he blankly stared at her and finished his meal. Was the wedding in the Vancouver area? My wife. She's pretty petty about most things, but I guess I can't blame her for not letting me on a date. If they can't handle their liquor, yet continue to drink anyway. I hate the idea of being with someone and after a drink or two they turn into a child. I definitely went on a date once where I drank too much and I just sat motionlessly in the corner while my date played drink pong and he came and asked me if I was okay and I just said, just trying not to move. While that might be bad date etiquette, you do sound like someone I'd hang out with. She uses Internet Explorer out of choice. Too many dietary restrictions. Being a picky eater. It's shallow, but I find it considerably easier being with someone who is able and open to eating a wide variety of food. What if they don't like ice cream and chocolate, which means you never have someone stealing yours from the fridge? I like vegans because they can't eat my corn dogs while I'm at work. Broke up with a guy because the way he ate a salad made me uncomfortable. He was pretty much attacking it, chewing it with a lot of fervor, and watching me while he ate. Just giving you a taste of what he would do to your lettuce. He had bad breath. I dated a girl for a while whose breath always seemed a little off. I told her about it and she had been oblivious to it the whole time. After her initial reaction of being mortified, she went and saw a specialist. Turned out she had a few nasal polyps that could have turned really nasty. You never know. This is a good example of why it's important to break the taboo of not telling people about uncomfortable physical problems they might not be aware of. Japanese girl. I'm Swedish. She believed in Santa, spent a Christmas in Sweden, and cried when she finally met him. I also broke up with a girl because of her belief in Santa Claus. In this case, however, she was a 20-year-old white girl in Oklahoma who was in college to become a teacher. Can't spell. You paid for something, not paid. My husband has trouble with spelling some words, but he has a great vocabulary. Dyslexia is a bitch sometimes, like when we're playing Scrabble. Dating would cut into my game or anime time. Well, you watch anime, so getting on a second date, waste of time. Second, the first one would be a waste of time. My backlog is only getting larger. I went on a couple of dates with a guy who was so afraid of fish touching his legs that he refused to get in any water other than a chlorinated pool. Probably not a deal breaker for most people, but I'm an aquatic ecologist, and my job at the time, right out of college, was to organize stream cleanup events. I couldn't see myself dating someone who was afraid of fish. I have an irrational fear of fish. They fascinate me and I love looking at them, but put me in water and I flip out. Funnily enough, it doesn't apply to sharks. Goldfish, terrifying. Sharks? Eh. Same name as an ex or family member. They smoke. Not really petty, they completely reek. It soaks right through into their soul. And the socks, don't forget the socks. Chewing your food with your mouth open. Instant no-go. Walked out of a date once. The girl was chewing like a goddamn barn animal. She was also being a horrid bitch to our server. I recently discovered that one of my friends is an absolute idiot towards the waitstaff. She refused to tip a waitress because the waitress forgot to bring her a cup of ranch, and the waitress brought her the wrong beverage. My friend had been incredibly unclear about what beverage she wanted and only decided on beverage B after the waitress had already clearly told her that she was going to bring out beverage A. Her logic was they make minimum wage at this restaurant, not server wage. I'm seriously reconsidering hanging out with her anymore. I have stopped associating with people who treat servers or cashiers like crap. I was a cashier in college, my fiance was a server. Maybe it makes me judgmental, but if you treat people like crap, then go frick yourself. Cheers. If the Kardashians are one of their role models. As a redhead, I can't bring myself to date other redheads. I'm constantly worried that people would think we're related, or that we're trying to save the redhead gene. She was just obsessed with celebrity news. Like, no, I don't care that The Weeknd and Selena are dating. The Weeknd and Selena are dating? Why didn't any of you jagweeds tell me? I broke up with a girl because I just didn't feel a connection, which actually means I couldn't stand reading her texts. Her spelling and grammar demonstrated functional illiteracy. I'm not a stickler for college thesis level grammar or anything, but you should be able to spell 4- and 5-letter words. Long fingernails on a guy. I just can't handle it. The idea of letting someone touch me with those things makes me gag. I don't know if it's technically petty, but I'm straight gone the first time I see a date or potential date side-eye people in a judgmental way. For example, if we're out and about and there's some unhandsome fellow or uncomely lady wandering by and I see you give them the eyeball up and down and then roll your eyes or quietly snicker or the like, I'm out. Passive-aggressive judgment like that lets me know off the bat the kind of person you are deep inside, and I'll straight happily nope away from you. I've done this unknowingly before. My husband pointed out that I gave some lady the death glare when in my mind I was just admiring her outfit. Resting bitch face, man. The pickup line, "You look like fun." On our first date, which was a nice hike, she kept going out of her way to step on bugs that she seemed offensive, like spiders and fire ants. I don't like them either, but they're just chilling out in the path, doing normal bug things. You don't need to kill them for no reason, you bish. Treating minimum wage workers like crap. I once went on a movie date with a boy who threw his leftover popcorn and refused to pick it up because it's their job to take care of it. I can't date a person who has kids, and believe me, I've tried. I just don't like kids very much, and I really have no idea how to interact with them. Not only that, the drama that comes from the other parent is usually beyond reason. Not bashing any of you single parents out there, of course. Find love however you can. Luckily, my lady and I are child-free and content with that. Future advice for interacting with kids. Treat them like miniature wasted adults. That's actually pretty brilliant advice, thank you. She said the word sassy far too many times within one day. She took the book Every Day is an Atheist Holiday in my car and decided to start attempting to save me. She liked horses. She carried a pistol and kept reminding me of it on the first date. She would only have sex in the shower because it was cleaner. She was too afraid to try things in video games because her character could die. For instance, trying to solve puzzles in certain games considered of just staring at the screen for hours until she could solve it without trial and error. Watching her play Limbo was a test of patience that I have never experienced before. Horse chicks are crazy. The people who brag about being a crap person. I couldn't join the army because I'd smack the first drill sergeant that got in my face. I need at least 3 drinks a night. I let my kid, 6 to 12, watch R-rated movies because she or he doesn't like cartoons. Smoking makes people taste of ash. It's disgusting. Apart from the health risks, it's just damn annoying. You're out with them and get left alone constantly on cigarette breaks. You're en route somewhere and have to stop outside the destination, probably in the cold, so they can finish their cigarette. You're traveling via plane and have to wait before check-in for them outside to have at least one last cigarette. Or go to the manky smoking area after security. Then once you land, you have to wait for them to have a bloody cigarette outside, probably in the cold before getting to your hotel or whatever. I'm definitely not anti-smoking and occasionally enjoy the odd social smoke myself, but hanging around or dating actual smokers and their inconvenient cigarette breaks is so annoying. If they don't like animals. Deal breaker for me. I read this as Animaniacs and I was about to agree. My best friend broke up with this smoking hot blonde after 1 week because her nose whistled when she breathed. Still dumbfounded by the decision. A girl asked me if I believed in dinosaurs. She thought Satan put them there to test us. I'm just glad she dropped the bomb on that 3rd date. Now I'm married to a woman that accepts dinosaurs. I used to refuse to date women who had any one of the following: kids, belly button piercings, tattoos. I finally found someone I genuinely love, and guess what? She's got all 3 of the above. And her daughter is a sweetheart. I love them both. She kept saying espresso. You don't like to read anything except gossip websites, fashion magazines, and entertainment blogs. I am secretly judgmental of people that get into arguments with strangers on Facebook articles. Find something constructive to do with your time. I called it off with a girl because she ate crap junk food and fast food all the time, and then she wondered why she was always sick. Bad teeth. Not as in they grew in funny, you can't really control that. I was born with crooked teeth. 5 years of braces with head and neck gear, fun times. But teeth that are clearly not taken care of, not brushed, cleaned, flossed, etc. I'm not going to kiss you or let your mouth near my wawaha if your oral hygiene is non-existent. 1. Too proud of the fact that they don't watch TV. Usually you get the pause and then the pretentious, I read. Oh, holy crap, do you read? Like you can look at those hieroglyphics on a page and somehow figure out the sounds they're supposed to make in your head as if someone is speaking to you? What are you doing here in grad school? Shouldn't you be on the 6th level of some wizard's tower calibrating the astro crystals or some crap? Too defensive of the fact that they don't read. Usually you don't get a pause, you just get, who reads anymore? Oh, holy crap, you don't read? You found out that TV and movies just do it for you and you never want to read again, do you? You won't find any joy in the occasional solitude afforded by letting yourself voice the characters in your mind's ear? All these other people are just antisocial bookworms, right? Watching the opening ceremonies of the Vancouver Olympics, where they pass the Olympic flag over, my girlfriend at the time looks up with amazement and exclaims, "Hey, I didn't know Vancouver was in Canada." It was at that moment I knew I couldn't date a complete idiot any longer. We live in Ottawa, by the way. They don't find the same things funny that I find funny. Sharing a common sense of humor is one of the major supports of a strong relationship. I've never once been able to become involved with someone who didn't laugh at the same stupid crap that I do. I dated a girl with lactose intolerance and various other food-related allergies. No peanuts weren't a huge deal, but no pizza was too much. That, and she lived forever away and was super busy. I felt like I was dragging her down, like the final straw between graduation and failing a class. I blamed the allergies to make myself feel better. I married a woman with quite possibly the worst lactose intolerance ever, and I get what you are saying, but I think you are missing the bigger picture here. Most places that serve pizza also serve other things, such as sandwiches. This means when you get pizza, not only do you have dibs on the entire pie, but more importantly, her sandwich likely comes with fries. One of the biggest issues with pizza, in my opinion, is its lack of side options. I mean, come on, breadsticks? WTF, your pizza without cheese. Now you get to eat all the pizza you want, steal a few fries, and unless you kill the entire pie, you now have meals for another day, or two, depending on the size of the said pie. Win-win. If they have letters on their wall or decorations, stuff like live, laugh, love, or home or some crap, that just screams uninteresting, basic, and boring to me. Not me, but an ex-girlfriend broke up with me because I cooked too much steak. Like, I am tired of eating steak all the time, tears and everything. I was totally stunned. There were other reasons too, of course, but her mentioning that I cooked too much steak for our dinners was hilarious. She was sleeping over at some new guy's apartment the next day, so the whole steak business was even more absurd. I guess she was just tired of eating my steak. The crying about the steak thing is hilarious. I'm just imagining her conversations with her girlfriends while she's driving home from work, on the edge of tears, saying, "I can't handle his steak anymore. It better not be steak tonight." Teachers, what's the funniest answer you've gotten from a student that technically wasn't wrong? I asked, "When is a time that you have used integrity?" He wrote down, "I wash my hands after going to the bathroom, even if no one is in there." Santa approves. My sweet little 7-year-olds overheard a 5th grade boy say, "Don't be freaking stupid," to his friend. They look up at me eyes wide and say, "Ooh, he said stupid." This is incredible. Taught in a K-8 school, that makes sense. We had a teacher who was shooting the breeze in the hall with a 7th grader say, "No way! Shut up!" in a joking manner. Kindergarten class was lined up in the same hallway and one little girl turns to the next person in line, does the loud "you're in trouble" inhale, and says, "He said the S word." Teaching English to middle schoolers in Korea, asked, "Okay, what's another way you can express surprise in English?" After going over expressions like, "No way," "Are you serious?" and "Are you kidding me?" a kid yells from the very back of the room, "What the frick?" Found the RTS gamer. Why are you late? The bell went off before I got here. That's genius. We'll use this tomorrow. I really wanted to try out this new joke. In grade 9 English, we were studying The Hobbit. Our bonus question for the test was, what word does Gollum never say? The answer, of course, was I. but one kid put down pumpernickel, and the teacher was like, heck, you're right, have a mark. I teach English to Vietnamese kids. I asked, what is the population of Vietnam? The kid quickly surveyed the room and said, more than 15. This guy is going places. Winning. This makes me so happy. I work with a guy whose name is Win-Win. He made a shirt that says, all I do is win, win, win. The assignment was write the following numbers in all letters. The kid answered 3, 4, 15, 16, 21, 22, and so on. I gave him full points. It took me way too long to realize what the joke was. Took me a second. The following second, I fell in love with the kid. Phys ed teacher here. I always wear shorts teaching. Parent-teacher conferences roll around. Grade 1 student comes up to me with her parents. Mr. Famous 1187, I've never seen you wear pants before. I've never responded quicker to comment before in my life to clear that up. Reminds me of when my wife worked in an undisclosed location women's shelter. My daughter wanted to see where mommy worked, but we could never go. I was picking up my daughter from school when she said, in the middle of the crowded school hall, Daddy, can we finally go visit mommy in the shelter? This reminds me of my nephew when he was 3. We dropped his mom, my sister, off at work, where she met a colleague outside and went in with him. Back at home, my nephew reported to everyone that he'd seen mommy go away with a man. I worked in a special needs class for a year, and there was one kid with a textbook case of Asperger's syndrome. Very bright, very tough nut to crack. I tried to tell him a corny joke once and he was not having it. Why did the chicken cross the road? He likely had business over there or was compelled by force. Well, okay. Easily my favorite memory of that class. My friend is also autistic, has led to similar punchlines to the classic corny jokes. Why don't people play poker in the jungle? Because the undiscovered tribes who inhabit the jungles have had no contact with Western culture. Therefore, they would have never heard of any game called poker, let alone know how to play it. I am autistic and can confirm. I actually do have enough understanding of humor to get most of the classic punchlines, but trying to keep a straight face is funnier. Not a teacher, but someone told me this. What side of the road do people in France drive on? Miss, they drive on both sides. They drive on the right side. Technically correct everywhere. What happens when someone drives on the wrong side of the road? You are no longer correct. In 7th grade, on a test, the question said, why do some people see some technology as positive and others see the same technology as a problem? And a kid simply put, because some people are Amish. I remember in year 3, we had to answer a logical question about why there might be an uneven amount of shoes at the door. I recently watched Titanic for the first time, so decided to write one person might be a one-legged prostitute. It helped that my mom was a parent helper that day. I mean, why else would there be an uneven number of shoes? Name 2 ways to determine the height of a building using a barometer that is exactly 1 meter long. 1. Take the barometer to the top of the building, drop it, and time how long it takes to hit the ground. 2. Find the owner of the building and say, hey, I have this really awesome barometer I'll give you if you tell me how tall your building is. 3. Run a plumb line to the roof and mark it. Use the meter-long barometer to measure the length of the plumb line. 4. Stand the barometer on the end and measure the length of the shadow it casts. Measure the length of the shadow cast by the building. The ratio of the length of the barometer to the length of its shadow will be the same as the ratio of the building height to the length of its shadow. 5. Place the barometer on the edge of the roof, from the ground. Use a laser range to find the distance from the ground to the barometer. 6. Use the mercury in the barometer to create mercury fulminate. Use the mercury fulminate as an igniter for a large amount of black powder to demolish the building. The building's height is now 0. Not a teacher, but a fellow student once answered, in the head, to the question, where was JFK shot, instead of the intended answer of Dallas. I mean, he was also shot in his car. I wrote an exam where the question was, can you name 3 models of DNA replication? She wrote, no. I mean, that was bad question writing on your part. Same kid on the same quiz. Describe the bus ride at the beginning of the chapter. It was a bus ride filled with action, but also with emotion. What happens at the end of the story? The story ends. The kid's going to be a politician someday. In 9th grade, my teacher was given a 6-week vacation, so we had a sub and all these silly quizzes each day about the book we were reading, Animal Farm. The last 2 questions were, what do you think will happen in the next chapter? And in the end. I eventually got tired of writing it and said, they're all going to die, over and over. She came back and laughed and said, well, you're not wrong. I've got a story from my fiance's childhood. They were testing her intelligence or awareness and showed her an image of a TV in a room. The TV was turned on, showing a cartoon and had a plant on top of it. Question: what's on the television? Answer: a plant. Apparently, she just kept insisting in utter frustration until the administrator bothered to look at the image and not the answer sheet. This reminds me of a friend's story. I don't know about public schools, but for sure at private schools, you get a little quiz-type test with a teacher before they confirm you're ready for kindergarten. One of the things they had to do was identify pictures. He aced the section except for the picture of the airplane. He looked and thought hard and then burst into tears saying, I don't know what that is." Turns out his dad worked for Boeing and he was trying and failing to discern exactly what model plane the super generic picture was depicting. During a similar test, I was completely sure the color I was supposed to identify was dark blue, not black. I was so insistent that the tester got a few other people to look at it and they decided that it really was a very dark blue. I teach and coach baseball. After our shortstop got thrown out on second for the third out, I told someone to pick up Will, in baseball terms meaning get his glove and hat so that he can go out to the field. This kid who was new to baseball, a big lineman-type football player, claps his hands together and goes, "It's okay, Will, you'll get them next time." I cried laughing. That's funny. Similar thing happened in an intra-squad scrimmage with my high school team a couple of days ago. Our coach told this kid, Sam, to pick up Jacob. Sam, who is both the worst player and the funniest player on our team, we call him the bench captain, says, "That's weird, but okay." Walks up to Jacob, literally picks him up and carries him all the way out to left field where he's playing. Not a teacher, but I work with kids, trying to delicately explain to a 3-year-old why she should be kind to her mommy. You shouldn't say those mean things to mommy when she's sick. Who looks after you when you are sick and makes you feel better? The doctor? Well, frick. Did you just swear in front of a 3-year-old? She taught me how to swear. I teach English in Japan. When teaching my students, I asked, what do we say when someone is being too loud? One smartass says, "Shut up forever." More like, forever. I had never said this. No clue where he learned it either. I nearly lost my crap, but he wasn't wrong. The correct answer is, "Be quiet, please," which I told him was more polite. He just grinned as if he knew but didn't care. Smart kid. I'll miss him when I change jobs. When I was on an exchange trip to Japan, a kid walked up to me with his friends, said "peen" to me, and walked away. That would be the highlight of my life. Not the teacher, but witnessed this in class. Sociology professor: "Why do you conform?" Student: "It has always been my goal in life to blend in." Sociology professor: "No more questions for you." On a 3rd grade Charlotte's Web quiz, give 2 pieces of evidence that support this statement. Charlotte was a good friend to Wilbur. She comforted him, and she didn't let him become pork. You know what I don't get about that story? Why is the pig the one who becomes famous? The real news is the super genius spider who knows how to think critically and write in English. Who cares what it thinks about the pig? I want to know its thoughts on the origins of reality. I have posted about this before. I am not a teacher, but my wife is an elementary school teacher. The kids were practicing their 2's times tables, and the question said something along the lines of, John lives in his house with his mom, dad, brother, and grandpa. How many total hands do the people in John's house have altogether? The answer they were looking for was 10, and they wanted the students to show 2 times 5 equals 10. This young man instead wrote, "Not enough information. What if someone lost a hand?" He wasn't wrong. My wife just wrote "good thinking" on his assignment and gave him full credit. The kid was bright and knew his times tables, so that wasn't an issue. She also had his older brother as a student and said they were both smart but jokesters. My wife now teaches kindergarten. This was when she taught 3rd grade, and said she misses the funny responses on tests. She used to have a full Word document of the funniest answers. Not a teacher, but just a witness to this hilarity. In science class in high school, our teacher was talking about electricity and lightning and the effects of being electrocuted. He asked if anyone happened to know what is the first sense you lose when struck by lightning. Without missing a beat, a girl put her hand up and answered in all honesty, "Your sense of humor?" The class had to stop for a few minutes until everyone could regain their composure. Seriously though, what's the first sense you lose? It's your sense of hearing. When I used to teach anatomy, Anthony named this bone. Femur? Is it a left femur or a right femur? Yeah. Anthony named this bone. Frederick. Elementary school kid saw the answer key. He swore he came up with "answers may vary" all on his own. What's sad is that we had to grade a first semester chemistry test once at university that was made for the medical students. I don't remember if the medical students were at first semester too. They just took the test together with the first semester chemistry students, but had an alternative version anyway. The thing is, the grading sheet with the right answers was leaked beforehand. One student wrote the correct answer down and then wrote 1 point for each correct formula underneath. How do you finish school without walking in front of a car if you are that damn stupid? In high school, classes were in Spanish. A teacher was angry about people copy-pasting online material from homework. She claimed one essay even contained a "click here if you want to know more about Tutankhamun." One of my classmates started laughing and the teacher told him, "You shouldn't be laughing, you didn't even realize your essay was in Portuguese." I wish I was making this up. Not a teacher, but something my brother answered for homework. My brother was in year 1 and his homework was to draw a balloon blown up. He drew a picture with a lot of squiggly shapes spread out across the paper. He took it as the balloon blew up, like a bomb, so he drew the leftovers of an exploded balloon. His teacher loved it and gave him full marks. Competently drawing the leftovers of an exploded balloon sounds a lot more challenging than drawing a single circle and a rectangular basket connected by lines. Or forget the basket because it just said balloon, not hot air balloon. Even easier. Name something living, fox. Name something non-living, fox poop. Better answer would be dead fox. Non-living means it was never alive. A dead fox was alive at some point, so that's actually a worse answer. Not a teacher, but a witness. In high school history class, the teacher asked, "What was the peace treaty that ended World War II?" This was a trick question because there wasn't a single treaty that ended the war. This one kid blurted out the Manhattan Project. The teacher laughed so hard that he went and got the other history teacher and had the kid tell him the answer too. This reminds me of high school when I had this pretty attractive history teacher. She was talking about jewels or something at a museum and I blurted out, "Miss, I can show you some real nice jewels." And everyone burst out laughing and the teacher got very red and flustered and embarrassed. I looked confused because I meant I would show her big diamonds and rubies, like to jokingly woo her, but the class and teacher took it as I was referring to my genitals. Teaching grade 5, students were fooling around during group work, so I said sarcastically, "Do I need to stand here and watch you do your work?" To which the student responded even more sarcastically, "Well, you don't have to stand, you can grab a chair and sit." I can't remember which grade it was, but probably 2nd or 3rd grade. The teacher was asking something relatively simple, and no one wanted to or knew the answer. "What's going on here? There should be hands up like trees in the forest." "Maybe this is a logging area," said the joker of our class. There was a buddy of mine in college, Jay, who was legendary for his witty responses in class. One, we were training to be RAs, and the residential life person asked, "What are some things that as an RA you shouldn't do in your dorm?" People were saying stuff like drinking, etc. Jay raises his hand and gets called on and says, "Practicing medicine without a license." The trainer was like, yeah, I guess that's true." 2. The same guy was in a film class. The teacher asks, "What technique defined the scene that we just watched?" Jay raises his hand, gets called on, and says, "Long, awkward silences." Teacher, "Could you give an example?" Jay, "This is a awkward silence." I used to teach preschool. One time, when we were eating lunch, one little girl called another kid in the class stupid. A third preschooler, who was a stickler for the rules and a bit of a tattletale, overheard and began admonishing the name caller. "Don't call people stupid," she exclaimed. "Stupid is a bad word and we don't say bad words." A fourth child, Henry, overheard this announcement. Henry was always getting into trouble. The smart ones are all troublemakers at that age. He was my favorite student. He looked directly at me, raised one eyebrow and said, "Oh yeah? Bish and frick are bad words too. We don't say those either." I died. You are choosing a book for reading. ESL teacher, I had my students do an activity where they had to give directions based on a map and situations I had chosen. The final question was more complex, and one of my students wrote, "Way too difficult, take a cab." Yeah, I had a smartass do something similar in my directions class. Me, how do you go to the bookstore? Student, use Uber. Funny the first time, less so the next 7. I co-teach a class and do a lot of the grading. Kids will write, "I love teacher A," and I'm like, "Haha, this is teacher B. Nice try." Student, "Oh teacher, you look so handsome today." Me, "Yes, I know, but you still have to take your quiz." I've taught English in Korea and Japan, and while maybe not that funny, one student who wanted to say something like afterwards or in the end wrote, "The after was here." I stopped for a moment and just stared off into space after reading that. I tried so hard and got so far, but the after was here. It doesn't really matter. My godfather is a lobster fisherman, and all of the kids in the family would go out on the boat with him from time to time. There was a running joke with my uncle, dad, and godfather. They would get a kid to bait a trap, then applaud them for being a master baiter. My cousin went back to school after summer vacation, and when the teacher asked what she did that summer, she proudly stated, "I became a master baiter." I want to know how the teacher reacted so badly. She called my aunt and uncle to ask them what was up. My cousin was so embarrassed she cried and wouldn't go to school the next day. This is intentional, but I teach a foreign language, and so when I introduce the word for I don't know, I call on a student who typically gets answers wrong and ask them to translate the word as if she should know it. When the student inevitably responds, "I don't know," I tell them that they're right, and the look on their face is always priceless. What does IDK mean? I don't know. Nobody seems to know what that means. Not a teacher, but I remember something I did when I was in grade 2. The student teacher took us into a private room, one by one, for eye exams. I've never taken an eye exam before, and it wasn't really explained to me what was happening. I just sat down and was asked to read the first line of the chart, then the second, then the third. By the time it came to the fourth line, I was like, "It's too small for me to read. 1 minute, please." Then I got up and walked over to the board and started reading the letters. Apparently that's not how you do eye exams. A similar thing happened to me. They took us into a room to test our eyes, so I left my glasses in the classroom. After a couple of lines, they recommended glasses, so I went and grabbed them. They looked at me like I was crazy. "Hey man, you wanted to test my eyes, not my glasses." I did the same thing. I had an awful eye doctor who messed up my prescription, so for years I could see better without my glasses than with them. The school decided to test us one day, and I couldn't see the board out of my really bad eye, let alone any letters. They proceeded to chew me out about not wearing my glasses and wouldn't let me explain. I hated those school nurses. My dad used to coach basketball and was trying to get the kids into a 2-3 zone. He yelled out to one kid in particular who was in man-to-man, "What defense are we playing?" The kid slaps the floor and says, "Tough defense!" Unrelated to this post, but related to this comment, I was working for a carpentry company framing up houses. I like to say this because company was a boot camp for framers because of the gung-ho, hold nothing back work ethic. Anyhow, I had an appointment that was very important that I arrive on time and in the Florida heat. Any excuse to quit early is important. I know it is getting close to my takeoff time. I ask the foreman, "What time is it, Matt?" He yells back, "It's game time, baby!" I lowered my head in defeat and went back to work. Me. The quiz tomorrow will be on student. Paper! Everyone laughed and I rephrased the question. Well, it's better than stone tablets, eucalyptus leaves, and blood ink. As an EA, I gave a group of second graders a worksheet about the main idea and detail. In the instructions, they were told to circle the main idea and underline the details. One child returned the paper to me very promptly, having underlined the phrase, "the main idea," and having circled the details in the instructions. I asked my students to draw a picture of a ninja chicken on an exam. One student drew nothing and pointed out that the chicken was such an effective ninja that he was invisible. Checkmate. What kind of exam was that? High schools in Alabama have really let their standards slip. Extra credit problem on a test that was very difficult. Like crazy difficult. Involved many steps and probably had to do with finding out the rate of oxygen consumption of reptiles. I hadn't made the answer key yet. Very few students tried any of the extra credit problems, and one answered all of them, but for the last one, they just put, "I don't want to do this problem." Neither did I. Gave them the point. This reminds me of a comedy bit I heard a while ago. The kid was in elementary school. I forget which grade, and the teacher asks him who shot JFK. The kid simply looks at her and innocently says, "I didn't do it." Comedian says this was in New York back in the 80s, and he was raised in a stereotypical gangster movie environment. Just for background, the teacher decides to call the kid's house because she's concerned about the answer he gave earlier. Dad picks up the phone. The teacher explains his son's behavior. Dad simply replies, "If he says he didn't do it, then he didn't do it." Troll dad is the best dad. Not a teacher, but a friend of mine couldn't remember what country wasn't a part of the UK on a test, so she put Mexico. I asked a 3-year-old what love was for a Valentine's Day card to his parents. His response, "Maybe love is what tornadoes need. We call him the professor because he teaches us new things every day. This is it. Best in the thread." We were talking about the Fukushima nuclear plant being hit by the tsunami. The brilliant young lad that was most engaged wanted to exclaim his understanding of the situation, but his slip of the tongue led to, "Nuclear pants are dangerous." We all agreed, and wrote the quote up on the board as a keeper for the rest of the school year. Shout out to Hot Wheels. This was not his only board-worthy quote. I call dibs on Nuclear Pants for my band name. Atomic Pantaloons could be the cover band for Nuclear Pants. Question: what ended in 1856? Answer: 1855. And this is how we learned the importance of asking precise, unambiguous questions. Exactly. I mean, he wasn't wrong. What are you sick and tired of having to explain to people? I hate it when people ask me questions during movies, and I will have to keep telling them that the questions will be answered in the movie. Agreed. What is it that makes people want to spoil themselves when they watch a movie with somebody who has seen it before? My dad does this when neither of us have seen the movie. I don't know, Dad. We're watching the same damn thing. Don't download and install something on your computer unless you know what it is. The amount of times I get a call from my dad saying, I've installed something on my laptop and now the Google looks funny. The Google. My dad called it the damn Google box. You shouldn't fully drain batteries to make them last longer. That was old info that only applied to NiCad and not modern lithium batteries, or NIMH. Why not? Modern batteries don't have what is termed battery memory. Older batteries suffered from it, so if you didn't discharge fully, it would lose capacity. Nothing's wrong, I'm just quiet. Why are you so quiet all the time? Is something the matter? Yes, my head hurts because of all these people who think they have to fill the silence by talking about stupid crap. Not every minute of every day has to be filled with words. The separation of church and state does not oppress your religious beliefs, it protects them. Additionally, it does not prevent a public school from having a sociological class that does a survey of the religions of the world. Wait, people seriously complain about that? Crap. They need to come down to the South, where we have teachers who play gospel music in class or write Bible quotes on the board, or schools who regularly promote joining the Christian club. I am not babysitting or playing mom today. She's my kid. I'm the dad. I'm parenting. My dad is a single parent to my sisters and me, and the comments he used to get, after his wife and our mother died, mind you, were atrocious, so condescending and so presumptuous. My dad would respond to the nosy folks by asking, "Giving mommy a break today?" with, "Yeah, she's dead. She needs a minute to herself," would usually do the trick. That I didn't get punched in the face, my boyfriend isn't abusing me, I don't have a black eye, etc. I have a birthmark right by one of my eyes, and everyone always asks. Ugh, this is why my baby pictures show me wearing high-necked shirts or a bib at all times. My mom was accused of trying to strangle me because of a birthmark that ran halfway around my neck. Mine isn't as bad, but just bad enough to get a CPS checkup each time I get a new teacher. It didn't click that it's my birthmark till years later. It took my wife a while to figure out why I wasn't a player because of the hickey I had when hitting on her in college. Why yes, I am quite tall. You must play basketball. If I had a nickel for every time someone said that to me, I would throw each nickel at their heads. I work the midnight shift. I need to sleep during the day, so I can go to work at night. The exact same thing you do, just at a different time. No, I'm not lazy about sleeping all afternoon. Yes, I am having a full meal and a drink at 8 a.m. when I get off. No, I am not an alcoholic. Yes, I do work later and am technically free at 3 p.m., but I need to sleep today. The number of people who don't understand. I started working for a buddy in the mornings as a second job when I was working nights. I had originally made it clear that I could only work till 1 p.m. because I needed to get some sleep before my third shift job. He kept pushing it and had me scheduled as late as 4 p.m. before I quit. When I said I need time to sleep, I meant it, bro. The worst is people act like the minute you clock out, you fall instantly asleep. I get out at 4, so they figure I sleep for 8 hours by noon. I have a roommate. He's also a guy. No, we're not gay. I also bake cookies and I'm still not gay. You should own the bullcrap and just try to make fun of it. Just start explaining this and devolve into a series of things that you two do together, followed by still not gay with some actually gay things slipped in there. Like, go out to the bar with him, still not gay. Let him frick me in the ass occasionally, still not gay. Play video games together, still not gay. Schizophrenia is not when you have two personalities. Oh, the countless times I have explained this one. I have a friend to that I have explained this more than once. Once for each of his personalities. Clearly, he is schizophrenic. You can't prove something with a study. You can only provide data that supports or rejects a hypothesis. Too many people read a single study about a topic and interpret the conclusion as a fact. People are just not aware of all the sneaky statistics and flawed experimental designs that are used to push an agenda. I find it so depressing. You can't trust anything you read or what people say, even if they sincerely believe in what they're telling you. The only way to combat the issue is to pay attention, research on your own, be diligent, and keep an open mind. That's all fine and well, but sometimes it would be nice to just have a good, reliable source of information. So much of American media is twisted up in agenda-pushing bullcrap, as you said. It's infuriating even when it's well-meaning and just poorly presented. Additionally, it is so hard to convince someone that they've been misled, even if your evidence and support are far more conclusive than whatever led them to their original conclusion. No, I don't have any riper avocados out back. I have to put the oldest ones out first, which are by extension the ripest. We're saving them for the rotten avocados section. The reason our customers can't connect to the Wi-Fi is that they didn't put a capital letter at the start. Would it just be easier to change the code to a lowercase? This guy has upper management written all over him. Yes, I am an identical twin. No, I don't know if we have the same peen size. Please stop asking me why we don't compare it. It's weird, and I hate explaining to you why that is. You should, for science at least. Computer games don't ruin your computer, Dad. Your damn 2012 laptop can surely handle SimCity 2000 without you thinking that there's a virus. Also, Norton is a cancer. My parents used to insist we were getting viruses from the Sims or Cartoon Network's website, but really my dad just clicks every link in every email. Yep, the number of times my dad thought he won a $1,000 gift card of his choice was embarrassing. How most issues people are having with their PCs can be fixed simply by turning them off and on again. The coworker sent out a checklist of things to try before contacting him for tech help. Went from 5 calls a day to once a week. I'd do that, but you see, I work in a school, and teachers are not the brightest bunch of people. You have a virus. Antibiotics will not help you. Yes, I know the last time you got antibiotics you felt better the next day. That's because the virus had run its course and/or placebo effect. Yeah, my grandma was over from India. Here's what happened. She got pepper in her eyes while cooking and said, "I will take the antibiotics I brought." I tried to explain to her why she shouldn't, but Dad says, "Show respect, blah blah." So she took her antibiotic, which was actually an allergy pill. In other words, Grandma gets pepper in her eye, which she tries to fix by taking an allergy medication, which she thought was an antibiotic. Just another example of the misuse of medicine. That my son's seafood and latex allergies mean that when he says no thank you to a food or a toy or whatever's being offered, he is not being rude to you. When an adult says, "A little bit won't hurt him, give me his plate," or "He doesn't really need that EpiPen, put that away because he'll grow out of it," it confuses him, upsets me, and means I will never leave my child alone with you until you get it. Neighbors, family, camp counselors, and people at weddings and parties, educated, old, young, doesn't matter. Many people say these things, and it is hard to handle it politely, yet firmly enough that it sinks in. These aren't seasonal allergies. He will not outgrow this. He eats that shrimp and has no EpiPen available, it will likely kill him. So back off, crazy shrimp-pushing stranger. I have a tree nut allergy. I go into anaphylaxis if I eat tree nuts, and always carry an EpiPen on me. Thankfully, never had to use it. Only one scare regarding Russian tea cakes that I thought were donut holes. But I would never say, "Hey, it's a good idea if I throw away the object literally designed to save my life." Some people are just stupid. Just because I'm Asian and adopted, I don't care about the foreign exchange student you had for a month. Nor do I know your nail salon person. My friend is Asian. You probably know him. Yep, we all go to the same meeting place every month and we share stories of all the white folk that we meet. Yes, that red rash is from eczema, and no, it isn't contagious. No, the cream your auntie, colleague, postman tried probably won't work. I've probably already tried it anyway. No, I can't just stop scratching. I can't tell you how many times I've had to explain to people that I don't want to buy the overpriced pseudoscience oils their aunt used that worked so well for them. How there are different kinds of epileptics that aren't triggered by lights. This. Also that just because someone isn't convulsing on the ground doesn't mean they don't have seizures. There are many types, and not all of them are obvious. Yep, mine are really minor and look like a split-second full-body twitch and then done. 95% of it occurs in a specific limb, and afterwards, I wonder why my neck, arm, or leg ache. Triggers are usually stress and lack of sleep, sometimes the cold. Normally, I'm sitting. Thankfully, standing means I end up on the floor, but that hasn't happened in 7 years. But coworkers and acquaintances get really confused. Yes, I'm actually sick and disabled. I look pretty normal on the outside. I'm pretty good at functioning when I need to. with the help of a cocktail of medication. Just because I show up to a family reunion looking healthy, makeup, and standing without assistance doesn't mean I'm faking it for the attention. Still chronically ill, still sometimes use a cane, still sometimes very sick. Yoga won't cure my lupus, and neither will going vegan. I have lupus, luckily, it's still very mild, and well managed. I'm so sorry you are feeling so sick. I know what you mean about the yoga vegan thing. My boyfriend's mother says I just need to get outside more. I think they believe it's a mental illness or something. Not that go outside more would be useless advice for someone with a mental illness. Finish your antibiotics. They're Denmarked for 10 days. There's no way you are getting me to take these pills for 10 days. That a linguist's job, and just linguistics in general, is not about learning how to speak as many languages as humanly possible. To be honest, just explaining what linguistics is can be an ordeal. Just because you can't see my disability doesn't mean I don't have one. A fellow soldier friend of mine in the army lost her leg in an accident. She was able to stay in and was assigned to my unit. We drive down to Walmart one night and she parks in the handicap space. She has the tag from her window, the correct license plate, and all of it. We get out and this lady comes over yelling and screaming about how my friend shouldn't be parking in that spot if she is perfectly capable of walking on her own. Lady said something to the effect of, "I should just beat the crap out of you, you lazy bish." My friend gets mad, removes her prosthetic leg, and yells back, "Try it, I will kick you upside the head with this thing." I have never seen someone turn red and run away so fast in my life. Sometimes I'd wish I'd have a prosthetic leg to be able to just remove it and shock assholes, and then I realize what kind of sick wish that is. Your friend rocks. When I take my glasses off, everything isn't black, it's just blurry. I'm not diabetic because of my diet, and I've noticed that I'm not overweight. There are two different types for a reason. I just posted this before I read your comment. Type 1 is not the same as Type 2, and yes, I can eat cake. I hated that so much as a kid. When a classmate would bring cupcakes for their birthday, there would always be an unfrosted one for me, and I'm just like, seriously, why do I take a shot of insulin? You watch me take a shot, are you really that dense? Do you think I just stabbed myself for fun? Why? Sorry, I hated being the special kid in elementary school. My Wi-Fi password? If I can remember it, so should my wife. It's been 3 years, Colleen. Just changed ours after 7 years. She complained about having to remember a new password. I didn't care because she never remembered the old one in the first place. Who needs to remember Wi-Fi passwords? You need it once in a blue moon. No, I'm not in a bad mood. No, I don't have a face on. No, nothing is wrong. It's just my neutral expression. Yes, my dog is a girl. No, I'm not upset you called her a he. Did you mean cat? Dogs are boys. You can't pause an online game, Mom. Mom walks in. Dinner's ready. Me. I'll be out in about 7 minutes. 2 minutes pass. Dad walks in. Dinner's ready. Yeah, I'll be out in 5 minutes. Rush out after the end of the match and back out rapidly. First person at the table. The last 15 years. Just because there are exceptions to a trend doesn't mean the trend doesn't exist. Men are physically stronger than women on average. No, they're not. I bet I could kick your ass. Yes, that may be the case, but that doesn't disprove the average trend. In general, people eat ice cream on a hot day. Oh yeah? I once ate ice cream on a cold day. Drinking and driving generally leads to accidents. Yeah, well, I was wasted and drove the other day and I was fine. Forget it. That last one really triggers me. I've heard people say, I'm better at driving wasted because I drive slowly and stop completely and signal and blah. Yeah, come time to make a split-second decision to avoid an accident and that won't be the case. Did you just admit your normal driving habits are horrifically dangerous? How sales work? How many times can I possibly explain what a buy one get one is, Cheryl? No, your $40 sweater is not free when you buy a 99-cent pin. Yes, of course you can speak to my manager who will repeat what I've been saying to you for an hour. We had a buy one get one half price offer at work once. Customers managed to misinterpret that in so many different ways. I had a lady come in one time and buy 2 jackets because it was buying one, get one free. I told her it's a great deal, but they were 60% off the week before, so she should look at the ad from the week before to see if she could get that discount instead. She told me I'm an idiot because 60% off isn't as good as free. You'll never realize how stupid people are until you work retail and see it firsthand. Playing video games 3 hours at night is not worse than watching TV for the same amount of time. Thank you! My mother and aunt watch TV all the time and complain that I and my cousin are always on our damn computers. It's our form of entertainment, just like TV is for you. I know, right? Somehow sitting on your couch from 8 p.m. to midnight and watching some random TV show, movie, news, reality TV is fine, but if you play any game for this amount of time, you're a geek and you need to get out more often. I guess we need to wait a couple of decades for the switch. I am tired of telling my parents and sometimes my sisters to read the error messages before they call me over to help them. 95% of the time, it's not even an error message. Bonus points if they close out of it and then ask for help. Vaccines work. Humans are driving climate change and the Earth is round. But there's this doctor in Norway who says that vaccines are a part of the Jewish conspiracy to kill Aryans, so the experts are divided about this theory. That's ridiculous. Everyone knows Norway doesn't exist. That 100% of people losing weight are in a caloric deficit. They often think hitting the gym or cutting carbs will suffice. Nope, you can cut all sugars and train 4 hours a day, but if you are not in a caloric deficit, you will still not lose weight. You look at the stars. Half the people will tell me that a calorie deficit won't work for them because they have some metabolic problem that causes them to gain weight no matter what. So you're telling me that if you stop eating, you will still gain weight? No? Okay, what if you only eat 1 slice of bread a day? Will you gain weight then? No? Okay, so there must be some amount of food where your weight will eventually start to gain, right? Okay, then eat less than that. In fact, for every 3,500 calorie deficit below that, you will lose 1 pound. It's not magic. You are not special. There's some amount of food that will cause your weight to stabilize. Eat less than that. Yes, you will feel hungry, that's the point. I sell glasses. Why are you adding the $210 again? These glasses say they're $95. Well, yeah, those are the frames. We gotta put the lenses in them. Why aren't the lenses included in the price on the tag? Because everybody's lenses are going to be different. To be fair, glasses are notoriously overpriced. Seni Optical changed my life. How to fix computers. Just Google the problem. Googling is a skill that you and most people on Reddit have been doing for long enough that every search seems obvious. Watch someone who is bad at computers attempt to Google something. You'll see that they'll have no idea how to phrase the problem they have and which links are useful. A friend of mine once asked me to take a look at his laptop because the touchpad was acting up. Naturally, I Googled the issue and tried a couple of fixes while he watched. After a few minutes of this, he looked at me and just asked, "Is that all tech support is? Just creative Googling?" I looked at him and said, "Yes, that is exactly it. Now that you've seen how easy it is, you can do it yourself. I have no idea if it worked, but I have hope." No, I cannot just stop being depressed or being anxious. One friend always tells me to calm down. I'm overthinking everything. I already know that. Saying it doesn't help. It makes it worse. It makes you overthink the fact that you've been called out for overthinking. No, I'm not the nanny. Yes, my daughter is blonde. Yes, I am a tan-skinned Latina with dark hair. People need to see more multicultural families, man. My wife has this problem. She's dark-skinned, and I'm a white guy. Our kids are fair-skinned. She was always asked if she was their mom or the nanny, until they were old enough to call her mommy. It's funny to a lot of people, but after a while it started to upset her. It's not cool, and we live in California. Loads of interracial couples here. What did a significant other do that made you stop and realize they're not the one? She was getting laid way more often than I was. Just didn't seem fair.
My wife and I only smoke after we got laid. I've had the same pack since 2003. She's up to 3 packs a day.
Rodney Dangerfield. I was trying to lose weight, and she told me I'd never succeed. She brought home fast food all the time to eat in front of me. I broke up with her and lost 100 pounds. If we include her, I lost 275. Well, she stabbed me, so that was a clue to get out. Sounds like you overreacted. What are you gonna do? Stab me? Got her a dozen roses for some occasion. She proceeds to call me about an hour later asking what the meaning behind me buying her 11 roses was. I explained it must have been a screw-up at the florist, and she says that's okay, local town florist has single roses you can buy, so just get me one of those and bring it by to make it an even dozen. I asked her how she realized it had 11. She told me that she and her mother counted to make sure I had got enough. At that moment, her whole family came into perspective for me. Her dad was a lawyer who had a trophy wife, just a little past her trophy years. He frequently went on surprise overnight business trips. Her 22-year-old sister was getting picked up from the police station at least weekly, which somehow never led to charges. Her mother, who was all but ignored by her father, would shower any guy brought home over the age of 15 with affection. The SO in question had jokingly told me of her plan to go to college, find a rich guy, and marry him. Thank God I got 11 roses. That's a participation trophy wife. Oh wow, that is brutilient.
In college, I used to get horrible, totally debilitating migraines. I'd puke for hours from the pain and eventually pass out when I was completely exhausted. My girlfriend of 2 years would nope out as soon as one started. I accepted this without question because I'm sure it was seriously unpleasant to be around. A while after, she broke up with me, but while I was still hung up on her and she was still stringing me along, I hooked up with another girl. It wasn't anything serious for several excellent reasons, but this girl who wasn't my girlfriend would arrange everything to make me as comfortable as possible, run cold water on a washcloth to put on my forehead, make sure I had something to throw up in, make sure my bed was cleared off and that I was comfortable, and all the other little things I'd have to manage on my own or do without if someone wasn't there to help me. She wasn't particularly interested in sticking around through all the puking either, but she wanted to do what she could, just because she was nice. And while we weren't going anywhere romantically, she still just wanted to help somebody who was in pain. An act of kindness and realizing how much it had been lacking in her is what got me over my ex. We were together for 18 years and I never once complained about all the weight that she'd gained while we were together. After her weight loss surgery, she started going out to the bars with her friends and noticed that the men were now starting to pay attention to her. This is when she told me that my height was a deal breaker for her. I'm shorter than she is. I tried to save the relationship, but she started sleeping with any and every dude who bought her a drink. Man, I'm sorry. Sounds like you really stuck it out there for her. You deserve better. If she really slept with that many men, I would get the frick away before I get triple AIDS. When my dad gave me the "I don't think she's good enough for you" talk about the 5th time. After that, I sat and thought about what he had said and tried to imagine her and me in the future, and just knew I wouldn't be happy. Your dad is a hero for being willing to give that talk 5 times. I dated this girl for 10 months. We got into an argument one night while driving and I pulled into her driveway, took the key out of the ignition and had it in my hand while we talked. I was scratching under my bottom lip with the key and she swung at my face, ended up catching my hand with the key and putting my car key through my bottom lip, kicked her out of my car and drove to the hospital. Surprise! Piercing! Was my first and only piercing. Couldn't accept the fact that you can work from home and constantly nagging me to get a real job so we can get married, despite the fact that I was making about double what she did. Well, now I'm making 5 times what she does and I'm still in my underwear for the majority of the day, so screw her. Wait, you're that guy making $2,100 a week working from home? Props to you for sticking it out for so long and trying to spread the word on popular social media pages. I'd been dating a girl for a few months. One night, her cat got out and was bitten by the neighbor's dog. She was terrified and in pain, and that might have been part of the reason he peed on the rug next to his litter box when we got him back inside. But the girl ran over and smacked him really hard in the head and yelled at him to stop. I immediately imagined what kind of mom she'd be if we ever had kids. I broke up with her a couple of weeks later. This is so sad. She shouldn't have pets or kids. Good for you to leave. I'd have stolen the cat too. She said, either your cat goes or I'm not moving in. Take your pick. She wasn't allergic to cats, she just didn't like them. I chose my cat and told her so instantly. It's not that I'm choosing the cat, I'm just not choosing you. Not one thing, so many little pebbly things. I won a Discman in a raffle at work and was thinking of selling it on Craigslist. He was sulky that I didn't give it to him. He already had a Discman. I bought some crappy chocolate from a coworker for her grandkids' school fundraiser. Came home, tossed it on a table, and said, "I brought home some chocolate if you want any." He was sulky that I didn't formally give it to him. He looked through my school things, found a schedule, and decided the schedule I'd shared with him was a lie. I explained he'd found the last semester's schedule. He didn't believe me. So much sulking all the time. Sometimes I wouldn't even realize he was mad until he wouldn't respond to me when I thought we were having a good time. I learned not to drink if he was drinking because I needed all my brain power to notice what small thing was going to upset him and avoid it. Oh my god, I'm having flashbacks. The littlest things will set some people off and I just don't understand it. I can't recall the things that would set off my ex because that's how minuscule they were. A friend asked me to see a movie. I invited her to go with us. She said, "No, have fun." Went to the movie and came home. She was crying because I chose my friends over her. Later in the relationship, she went, "Single white female. An old movie for you kids, look it up." On our roommate's girlfriend. Went shopping with her, bought matching clothes, and got the same haircut. Really creepy. She wasn't the one. My wife of 13 years and the mother of my 2 children, seemingly out of the blue, claimed she had a spiritual awakening and can now see the future, communicate telepathically with animals, and can talk to angels. The angels told her to have an affair with another married man. I had a friend that did something similar. She ended up harassing a stranger's dog until it bit her in the face. She told me about the time she got so mad that she crushed her pet bird to death with her bare hands. You know, because we all get so mad you just need to feel the death struggle of a small innocent creature? Now that is scary. Little bit. Later on, found out she did it more than once. When I said something about AIDS and she asked for a source and I came up with an article from some government website in New Zealand and said, yeah, well, I doubt they know anything about AIDS. And when I asked if she knew where New Zealand was, she said, no, probably in South America or something. Wait, no. Haha, of course it's in Africa. Huh, didn't know that I lived in Africa. He stole my pain medication when I hurt my back. I was absolutely beside myself, worried that I'd lost them and my toddler would find them before I did. So I ripped my house apart to no avail. Had to go back to the doctor to get more painkillers, which raised suspicion that I'd already used them all. I found them at his house when I stopped by to pick up my phone charger and his son let me in. He was at work. There they were on the coffee table with my name on the sticker on the box and everything. There was no indication whatsoever that he had a drug problem. In fact, he was a bit of a health nut, so I still don't understand why. I just dumped my girlfriend over the weekend for this one. She went to Miami for a few days on a work trip and asked me if I could pick her up when she arrives Saturday night at Newark Airport. I live in Brooklyn, so this is far from convenient for me, and I agree. She lands at 11 p.m., so I plan to arrive at 11:20, giving time for taxiing to the gate and getting her luggage. I account for tolls and traffic and nail my arrival. I see her waiting at the curbside pickup area and wave and pull over. She tosses her bags in the back, gets in shotgun and slams the door, puts headphones in her ears and throws up her hoodie. I'm like, hi? She didn't give me a hug or a kiss, not an I missed you or thanks again for the ride or even a hello. She just says she wants to listen to her podcasts and I'm like, fine, whatever, and turn on my car radio only to be met by a loud, ugh, from my right. I turn to her and ask what her issue is and she tells me the radio is affecting her ability to hear her podcast. That's when I knew. Dumped her right then and there. Did you still give her a ride? Yeah, a very awkward 45-minute ride. Once I dropped her off, I met my roommate at our local bar and we celebrated. She made me choose between being with her and being there for my grandfather who was diagnosed with stage 4 Parkinson's. It wasn't a hard choice. Typically, if someone is making you choose between them and someone else, they aren't worth choosing. He didn't like me hanging out with our friend group. He wanted to hang out with them and wanted me to stay home. Not kidding. He would then get extremely wasted and drive home or call me at like 1 a.m. to come 20 minutes away and pick him up and bring him to my house so that I could take care of him. Or he'd pick a huge fight with me and have me in tears and the next day act like things were fine. The funny thing is the rest of the relationship was great, but over time his drinking and not wanting me around for the good times was just such a huge turnoff I ended up calling off our wedding. Plus he only wanted to go out with his friends. If they wanted to go to a basketball game in the city, he was all for it, and of course I wasn't invited. But when I wanted to go to an event or even for a hike, he was too tired or didn't like crowds. Marry your friends then, dude. But now I am a bish for calling off the wedding. Sorry I bent over backwards for you for 3 years while you sidelined me anytime a better opportunity came up. Not? Can you tell I'm a little bitter? I dated someone like that. We met each other because we were part of the same friend group. But then when we started dating, he didn't want me hanging out with them anymore because he needed time away from me with his friends. What? But this was high school, so that explains that. Can't imagine a grown-ass man acting the same way. You're doing what I did, which is assume people actually grow up after high school. A lot of people don't. After 5 years, I realized that I was willing to drop everything in my life for him, and all he had to do was ask. I would give up my dreams and ambitions, and if it meant staying with him in the same town with the same people forever, at that moment, I realized that he would never even consider doing the same thing for me. I haven't seen or spoken to him in 4 years, and I plan on keeping it that way because I worry all those feelings would come back if I ever saw him again. Love is crazy. Opposite. She would have dropped the world for me, and I would have given her the world if I could. But in doing so, she had no ambitions or dreams of her own. She thrived on my dreams only and seemed content stagnating. I didn't want that for her or myself. I needed and now have someone who was independent, strong, etc. Someone to counter and balance the type of person that I am. Leaving was hard, but 7 years later I have no regrets. I haven't seen her since that day I walked out of her front door, but I hear she's found her own path towards something that she's always been passionate about. When I walked outside the pub and saw her making out with a complete stranger. 4 years down the drain, but at least I dodged that bullet of marrying her. Thankfully, I've met a much better woman since then. I can only imagine how much that hurt, but good on you for moving on and being happy. Good ending indeed. I can't remember the exact conversation, but my SO stood up and yelled at my grandfather that he was stupid and didn't know what he was talking about when he asked something about her job that he used to do when he was a kid. She proceeded to just be rude and tell him how he was losing his mind. A quick Google search answered his question and showed how she was wrong. I was the bad guy at that point. On the way to her house, we broke up. Never disrespect your or someone else's grandparents, especially when they ask a basic question, especially not if you are incorrect. We had to be apart for a few months, and I slowly realized I was much happier when she wasn't around. I started to regain my confidence and feel like myself again. She calls to ask me when we're going to meet up after the months went by, and I just said, I don't think I'm coming back. I get that feeling when I'm in a relationship. Like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with you, and I actually like you, but I just prefer to not be in a relationship. We were together for 7 years, recently engaged, caught her with another man while my daughter was home. Got into an altercation with the guy, kicked his ass, and she pressed charges on me, not the guy, but her. I don't understand. They always get mad at the guy that she made the choice with. The guy's just there. Should have kicked her ass. Buy me that handbag. On our first date. I laughed when I saw the price tag. She was serious. I ain't saying she a gold digger. Took him to urgent care one night about midnight. He had bronchitis. We didn't get home till like 2 a.m. I got up a few hours later and went to work. He was a baby for a week but made a swift recovery. 2 weeks later, I was running a fever and miserable. He wouldn't take me to urgent care. I could barely walk a straight line. When I finally get to the doctor, I have a double ear infection, strep throat, and walking pneumonia. It took me 2 months to fully recover. Asswipe. She made me feel stupid. I'm not a super genius or anything, but I did get a master's degree in structural engineering, so I'm not some dolt either. She managed to make me feel like an idiot with the things that she would say to me. Also, she would fight dirty, just like her parents always did, by bringing up things from weeks or months ago and throwing them in my face, so that every disagreement about some small thing spiraled into this crap fest of an argument about everything that pissed her off in the last few months. Looking back, I'm not sure how I lasted 2.5 years with her. We were in a pub with another couple. I asked him to help get me some drinks from the bar for everyone, as obviously I didn't have enough hands to carry 4 shots and a round of drinks. Yes, I was paying for them. He point blank refused. I was like, excuse me? I need help. And he just said get a tray. I walked it off and went to the bar, asked for a tray, but they didn't have any. When the barmaid helped me to carry all the drinks out, he was head over heels apologizing to her for the inconvenience. Didn't even give me a second thought. Screw you. Also wandering off from me when I'm on my own. I'm calling and shouting for him to stop and wait as we were going to the car together from the shop. He didn't stop and later told me it was because he was cold and wanted to get inside. I was cold too. Double screw you. 5-year relationship ended suddenly last week and I need these angry threads to vent. Yeah, screw that noise. I live for those little moments where you can be helpful and appreciated for doing basically heck all. Easiest brownie points ever. And then he apologizes to the barmaid. Threw a temper tantrum because her parents made reservations for all of us at a restaurant she wasn't in the mood for. It was actually a great place with plenty of food that she liked, but she just felt like being difficult, as she often did. This was way out of proportion though. It became a huge argument with her parents, followed by a meltdown that lasted into the next day. I had to cancel seeing my mom for Mother's Day the next day because she couldn't stop screaming and crying. She had recently changed medication, so it had to have something to do with that, but still, I couldn't handle that crap again. She was 23 at the time and she was acting like a 5-year-old. No, I'm ashamed all over again. I had this happen to me once. I changed epilepsy medications and literally had no control over my reactions or emotions. It was terrifying. I saw what I was doing and couldn't stop it. Luckily, I was just with my family, so it didn't damage any relationships. I begged them to take me to the hospital. They complied because they amused I was having a psychotic break or something. The doctor asked what medication I was on, and I told her, and she immediately was like, yep, I think I need to call my parents and apologize again. I was like a 2-year-old. I'm a classically trained musician, and while I was working on my bachelor's in music, my girlfriend asked me, so at what point do you give up on this music dream, grow up and get a real job? Excuse me? This is my chosen profession. It's tough and competitive, and I won't waste my time with someone who thinks what I do is childish. Damn, I know how competitive it is, and I have mad respect for your tenacity. You keep that crap up. She ascribed her bad mood and personal problems to astrology. She was a Cancer, wasn't she? My ex told me she might be pregnant, and a few weeks later I saw her drinking at a bar with her friends. I asked her what the heck she was doing, and she admitted that she lied because she thought I was going to break up with her. So I did. He thought once a week was often enough for us to see each other. He was not working at the time and had lots of free time. We also lived 15 minutes away from each other. No, I'm not fine with that. I remember when I dated a guy and we only could see each other once a week because of jobs in college. That was miserable, but it helps when you make the attempt to see each other as often as possible. Not the one, but a big one. While in college, schoolwork wasn't an excuse that was acceptable. I would tell her, I'll be over once I finish this coding assignment. She'd ask for an ETA and I wouldn't have one. Sucks all around, but getting mad at me while I'm getting work done just makes the work take longer and turns my stressful situation into an even more stressful one. I told my girlfriend I have to leave home to finish some of my programs. I'm a senior and I have some big projects to finish. Sometimes it takes hours for me to be done, but she has never gotten mad at me for it. Your post made me realize I got lucky for it because she understands it's for the better. What does popular media portray as everyday, yet is far from a reality for the majority of people? Anytime they show people are at work, they're never working. What is their job? Why can't I go work there? What is this mythical land of ease and pleasant conversation by the water cooler? I always think about this when watching The Office. It seems like nobody on that show ever does actual work. Have you browsed Reddit? These people are building cardboard forts and crap. I'm sweating and hurting 2 hours into my 8-hour shift, 120% all day. It boggles my mind. Everybody has a gay friend. I don't have any gay friends. At least, not that I know of. Maybe you are. I mean, I do really like touching and handling wood, but that's usually for woodworking. If you go on vacation, all your friends will go with you. Even if they work a low-paying job that they probably can't afford it, they will somehow find the money and have the vacation time to drop everything and tag along. I'm traveling to insert location here for my job, and my boss gave me 5 extra tickets so we can all go. Sure, I don't have to show up at the job I never really do anything at. Turn on the TV and bam, the news is on, reporting something 100% relevant to your personal life. Love how this was played with in Shaun of the Dead. Arrested Development has my favorite scene of this. Now imagine how dramatic that would have been if it came on right away. People conversing in a normal voice in the middle of a club or other loud venue, or in a quiet place. Kids on TV will talk in a normal voice while they're taking a test or something. How does the teacher not hear them? Same with like action movies when they're trying to be sneaky. Like what? Whisper. I once had a Japanese person ask me why Americans wear shoes in bed. I had no idea what he was talking about until he mentioned that he observed it in a soap opera that he was watching. Some god-awful heathens wear slippers to bed, which I really want to know why. My girlfriend does this sometimes only because she's part reptile and will turn blue and become hypothermic unless she's kept at a constant 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Getting to meet up with friends on your long, booze-filled lunch break. Didn't Friends have a joke about this? Where they all wondered why their bosses disliked them and Phoebe said, "Maybe it's because you were all here in the middle of a Wednesday." Was expecting this comment here. It was Joey who said that. Attractive people everywhere. And the ugly people they do show are not even close to half as ugly as the people you just see going to the grocery store. TV ugly, not ugly ugly. People fighting. People taking punches and not dropping like a sack of doorknobs. And, in action movies, intense grueling fights lasting more than 50 seconds. Like, watch a boxing match. Those guys are out of breath and sweating, and they're in amazing shape. John from marketing isn't going to spring for 2 minutes, climb through a window, and then kick Johnny Karate's ass. Also in action movies, a guy built like The Rock maintains that build in combat in dire circumstances. He'd have to be absolutely hogging all of their rations and food and be exercising for hours on end each day. Broke and in a cool but cheap apartment that's fully decorated to the highest cool kid standards. Not a rat, roach, or creepy neighbor or smells from the Mongolian restaurant you live above seeping into your clothing ever being mentioned. Cool kids get fleas too. In their defense, TVs don't show smell. Also, Luke Cage lived in a crap hole above a Chinese restaurant. More shows are like Friends or New Girl than Luke Cage. 1 bottle of wine is to be shared by 6 people. I'd be like, thanks, where's yours? Or the opposite where they show people drinking suicidal quantities and being slightly inebriated. They down a bottle of JD and have a wild but controlled night and wake up feeling fine in the morning. I drink an entire bottle of JD and I wake up on my bathroom floor in the morning next to a loo full of crusty vomit because I forgot to flush with little idea of what happened the previous night, and then spend the rest of my day in a dressing gown eating cheese and crackers waiting for the inevitable satanic death craps to show their face. It's not fair. How the police solve crimes. Enhance. I know it's supposed to be futuristic and all, but Blade Runner absolutely made me want to claw my eyeballs out. Harrison Ford enhanced his way into the reflection of a reflection off of a reflective object in the corner of the third reflection to get a clean image of someone else in the room. People show up unannounced to have a face-to-face conversation. This used to be the norm until cell phones in my country. None of my friends do this anymore, but my parents' friends do drop by unannounced quite often. This is the worst, in my opinion. Anytime someone shows up unannounced, it's guaranteed to happen when the apartment is at a below-average clean level, I'm in a t-shirt and boxers at most, I'm in the middle of several different activities that are inconvenient to stop, and I haven't had a shower yet. Coughing equals dying, and a woman throwing up once equals unexpectedly pregnant. This is one of the most irritating things. I remember in particular in high school, I went to the bathroom and threw up and then went home, and the next day I was apparently pregnant, and 4 different guys claimed it could be them. I was a virgin. Thought the rest of my life would be different, but still, I feel women can't even mention an upset stomach without everyone around them immediately jumping to pregnancy. It's annoying. Fancy breakfast. I basically just run around searching for something while chewing whatever food I find first in the kitchen. Dude, you're doing it wrong. You've just got to look on your large kitchen table where your gorgeous, uninvolved with the plot stay-at-home wife will have prepared a smorgasbord of waffles, pancakes, bacon, sausages, French toast, strawberries, melon, bananas, and blueberries, with a mug of coffee and a pitcher of orange juice to wash it down. And then they take 3 bites and say, "Oh, would you look at the time," and put their coat and hat on and leave a full table of food behind. Everyone has an unlimited supply of clothes and never wears the same thing twice. Although in Harry Potter's case, he's usually wearing the same t-shirt throughout the series. Right, around when they decided students involved in the plot never had to wear robes more than was strictly needed. No pimples, unless the entire theme of the episode is about getting rid of a single pimple in time for X. In which case, the person has perfectly clear skin minus a giant whopper of a pimple in a conspicuous place. Babies. They seemingly cease to exist when not directly relevant to the plot. When I had my kids, it was a constant, "Oh crap, who's holding or watching or changing or getting their ears destroyed by Junior?" 20-ish hours per day for about 6 months. Then once they get past the character has a baby season or 2, the kid is magically about 4 and gets a bunch of witty lines, but then still disappears for episodes at a time. This aggravates me with Judith on The Walking Dead. She ceases to exist even during zombie attacks, and I'm wondering who the heck is watching the baby? Tap the keyboard a few times and you're in. Never happens in real life. That's one of the things in shows and movies I don't really mind. Actual hacking or getting into secure systems and the like would be boring as heck to actually show. I like the fake technology, and I think it's almost endearing when the writers at least try to use sensible vernacular for it as well. I love it when they use fake or obviously wrong terminology. It makes me laugh so much. Running into a near miss again later. For example, I ran to Whole Foods once on my dinner break during a crazy workday. As I was standing at the hot bar in a daze, contemplating the Brussels sprouts, a guy came up alongside me and started talking to me. I didn't say much back, and soon we said goodbye as he headed for the salad bar. It wasn't until my walk back to work that I realized he was cute, and he had been flirting with me. I was so zoned out that I hadn't realized it was happening, and now it was too late to go back and try to talk to him again. I spent the next several weeks spending entirely too much money at the hot bar hoping to see him again, but I never did. Whole Foods hot bar man, if you're out there, I still go once a week for the mac and cheese that we bonded over. I'll be waiting for you by the salad bar. I think it's time to quit your job and work at Whole Foods. Most fictional shows are set in upper middle class houses, whether it's a real house or a set, because it's easier to film with that amount of space. I'm middle class and I'm struggling to think of a show where the houses look like my parents' neighborhood. Real life is crap-lit places, mismatched furniture, piles of mail and junk mail on the countertop, coats and clothes piled on another table, an overflowing recycling bin, and dirty dishes. Most of the sitcom places look like model apartments from a realtor. Malcolm in the Middle. Ordering a shot at the bar while having a bad day. When the bartender pours the shot, you say, "Leave the bottle." The bartender gives a, "This guy sure is having a bad day" look and leaves the bottle. Pull this stunt in real life and they will tell you to beat it. Being a bartender? Yeah. Shot of Jack. Actually, just leave the bottle. Sure, that's gonna be $125. This is my biggest gripe with movies showing people drinking a lot in a bar. They never show them paying for it, and sometimes they can just storm out when they encounter other characters. Those drinks must cost a ton and bartenders won't let them walk out like that. When the police interview people, they're always in the middle of something like painting a fence or cleaning up after their kids. If detectives talk to you, you're gonna sit your ass down with anxiety and walk through it with them. Not saying bye or something like it when ending a phone call. Not closing a door after walking into some place. Not locking a car after getting out. Women sleep with a full face of makeup while wearing a bra under a tight shirt. Mine gets slung across the room as soon as I walk in the door and kick off my shoes. My fiance has a pile of hers next to her side of the couch. She generally comes home and puts on comfy pants and leaves her top alone. She wears nice sweaters or Under Armour type quarter zips, so nothing uncomfortable. Then, usually around dinner, the bra comes out and joins its comrades on the floor. Every single day. Actually using lockers in high school, and not to mention being able to stand there for 10 minutes and chat. I have never seen a hallway with lockers as empty as it is on TV between classes, except after school. That slow amble the main characters do while they chat about their lives means they're coming to class 5 minutes late every time. Also, no school on TV ever has proper stairs. Someone goes up to a bar, orders a drink and takes a sip, and then runs out after 2 sips, leaving most of the drink behind. I get that this is probably a continuity thing, however there is no way I'm ordering a $12 drink and leaving even a sip behind. I am drinking the crap out of that drink to the last drop, for sure. Oh, we're going, let me chug my drink. I have seen a 90-year-old man chug a schooner because his taxi arrived early. You don't waste good alcohol. Waking up in the morning looking like you just walked off a modeling set. I wake up beautiful every single morning. Someone stealing your lunch money, or a group of teens coming by and taking your lunch and eating it, or smacking your food tray out of your hands and flinging it to the ground. Never saw that happen to anyone ever in real life. I saw food getting smacked out of my hands. It was always friends being horrible to friends just for jokes. No bullying was involved. Lots of TV shows feature characters who are quite wealthy, live in big houses in rich neighborhoods, or huge apartments in big cities. It's often better to film in those places. The rooms are larger and easier to light and get a variety of angles. The houses have more locations all in one place, etc. But also producers are out of touch with most people's reality. It's just a banana, what could it cost? $10? I don't actually know how unpopular this is, or if it's more realistic and common in places like classic American small towns or whatever, but shows like Riverdale or Stranger Things or Buffy or Troll Hunters, etc., that showcase high schoolers just getting together at the local hangout spot or each other's houses on a whim outside of school wherever and whenever is an alien concept to me. Back when I was at that age, I lived about 10 to 20 kilometers from my school, and all my friends were about the same distance apart from one another, sometimes in opposite directions. I got to and from school via the school bus, and organizing an outing somewhere before we were of driving age was quite an ordeal of getting our parents to schedule well in advance to drive us places. The more wholesome and happy-go-lucky freedom I see in these shows looks like it would have made for some amazing childhood memories. Seems like these characters all conveniently live within the same street, conveniently next to the town's CBD. Meanwhile, I was lucky to live in the same postcode as my school friends. Hanging out like that is fairly realistic in the US. I've always had a couple of friends within walking distance and more within 10 to 15 minutes of driving from my house. Also, the driving age is 16 in a lot of the US. So by the mid-high school, you, your friend, or a sibling will likely have a car. That person with the car also basically immediately becomes the coolest person. The majority of people are working class worldwide. Majority of TV worldwide, at least in my experience, is about the middle classes and the rich. Just another way to suppress the proletariat. Class consciousness intensifies. Twins or identical people switching lives with absolutely no one noticing. I get that a very casual acquaintance might not be able to tell twins apart, but if you ever take the time to get to know somebody who's a twin, you would immediately know it's not them. As an identical twin who has switched on numerous occasions, you would be surprised who does and doesn't notice. Don't tease us, we need twin switching stories. Childbirth. On TV, you'll see the expecting woman at home or work or anywhere other than a hospital when suddenly her water breaks. Then they're racing the clock to get to the hospital while the mom screams her head off from labor pain. In reality, most people have a pretty good idea of when their water will break and can get to the hospital without a freak out. She also has to dilate before she can give birth, and that can take some time too. Or that the baby comes out looking like a well-fed 5-month-old and not the reconstituted raisin newborn humans actually look like. Yes, fresh out of the womb babies can't be actors, but still, I notice it every time. Gorgeous women doing seductive squats in gyms with proper lighting, perfect makeup, and not a drop of sweat in sight. I actually see a lot of that in my gym. People are perfectly made up with not a hair out of place and dressed to the nines in the latest fashions while hanging around the house. I usually change straight into an old pair of shorts and a sloppy t-shirt the second I arrive home. Keys placed in the visor of an unlocked vehicle. People do this out in the boonies all the time. I know some people that just leave it in the ignition. My uncle lived and worked on a tiny island, only a few hundred people on it, for a summer. And people used to do this and just borrow each other's cars because there was nowhere to go if you stole them. You just hop in, drive to the shop or whatever, leave a few pennies for petrol or top it up when you had some. There were also no police on the island, and the policemen would come over on the postal ferry. So the postman would phone ahead to warn everyone, and they'd hide all the cars away because none of them were taxed or anything. They also used to drive them back from the pub, and the one guy with a big tractor would go around every Sunday morning towing cars out of ditches because wasted old men had run them off the road. I've been to another island that had very similar practices. Wild college parties every night with hot girls in their underwear and no cops or security coming to shut it down. Yeah, sure, wild parties do happen, but the media makes it seem like it's all the time at every college or university. I was at a naked college party one time and got fingered on the balcony while people at the party next door cheered us on. Fun night, par for the course at UCSB. Never ever going to the bathroom. Depends on what videos you watch. Punching someone with no legal repercussions or serious injury. A single punch to the face can do some serious damage, even if thrown by an amateur. You can break a nose, break a jaw, destroy teeth, screw up an eye, and more depending on where your fist lands. You're likely going to break your hand or sprain your wrist, and there will be bruising and swelling. At some point, someone is calling the police, unless you're Buzz Aldrin. Whenever someone smokes a cigarette, they put it out after like 30 seconds. Who has the money to pay for all these barely smoked cigarettes? Popular media doesn't like to show that people mainly work all the time. Also, most of the people on television are dressed much better than the average person, have nicer homes, and are much less bored. Falling in love at first sight happened to me. What they don't tell you is that there's a chance that he or she doesn't feel the same way about you. Then you must move on, but you can't because everything in your life makes you think about her, but you can't be with her. You've got to move on and try to love someone else, but that someone never makes your face light up as she did, and if she does, it's because you thought it was her. Pretty sure you're trolling, but in case you're not, this is not love. Love only comes after getting to know someone. What you're describing is some mix of attraction and infatuation. It is unrealistic and unhealthy to think otherwise. People with science degrees aren't really geniuses. Well, most of us aren't. We're just ordinary people who worked really hard, and we don't know everything in our field, not even in the piece where we're experts in. I love seeing shows where the genius engineer can just invent a thing to solve problems on the spot, but that is not realistic in any way, shape, or form. And even if we are super geniuses, we're not TV-level super geniuses where we can just invent a cold gun to stop the Flash on a whim. All New Yorkers are jerks. All Southerners are toothless rednecks. All black women saying "girlfriend" a lot. All Californians are the Kardashians. All poor people are drug addicts, and all rich people are classy. So basically every stereotype. Random people spontaneously break into highly coordinated song and dance. Happens to me all the time. Everybody listening to and nodding their heads in affirmation with someone, usually the protagonist doing a presentation. In real life, more than half of the people in the boardroom would be on their phones, texting, or just plain browsing social media. Read this while browsing social media in a meeting. That the centrifuge gives you the DNA profile of the suspect within seconds. Literally every crime series shows that. I would say the morning shows like Good Morning America have a sort of happy vibe as they talk about buying the new $200 fashion clothing or making a $60 lunch meal. All this while half the country makes under $51K a year. GMA is essentially for housewives in the tri-state area. I live in Chicago and have for my entire life. Although the violence here is an epidemic, I have not once felt that my life was in danger. Where do you live? I grew up on the south side in Chicago Lawn and in Pilsen before gentrification, and although it didn't happen often, there have been times where I was afraid for my life. 6 people eating a pizza. Where the heck are the other 5 pizzas? People smile and laugh while eating a salad. You need to have more fun at lunch. When someone catches you doing something that looks wrong and it's super easy to explain that it wasn't actually a big deal, but instead you just let them walk away without explaining anything, letting them think that you did that wrong thing, and then in the end when they make up and she forgives you, you still don't explain what you did wasn't actually wrong at all. People doing things on a weeknight other than going home and watching 4 episodes of your current TV show in a row, and then going to bed later than you wanted to, even though you said you were definitely having an early night tonight when your alarm went off this morning. That everyone works 9 to 5 jobs, and Friday means 2 days off after work. This is pretty common, even if not everyone does it. Living in the heart of a major city in a well-decorated apartment as a 20-something with a normal run-of-the-mill job, or better yet, being an artist, musician, another creative type. I mean, yeah, if you have a high-powered corporate career, then you can pull that off in your 20s. But then you're also not the kind of person who has oodles of time for self-exploration, hobbies, and socializing. Case in point, my friend circles include scientists, engineers, programmers, network administrators, architects, and marketing professionals, and not a single one of us lives inside the city. The most successful guy I know has a 2-bedroom apartment that overlooks the loading area of a Home Depot. At least he lives alone though. Everyone else I know has at least one roommate, and most people have more than one. And of the people I've met who actually do live inside the city near the nightlife areas, every single one of them could only live there because they were being financed by their parents. One guy I met at the bar said the only reason he had the apartment that he did was that his parents owned the building. In the heist, con, or undercover shows, people talk with earpieces in voices loud enough that people around them are going to hear or notice. Dealer at the active blackjack table. Are you in position yet? Lady in a ball gown getting champagne from a waiter. Affirmative. I have eyes on the target. Yeah, nobody's going to notice you talking to thin air. Groups of people hang out with each other on a nightly basis, like Friends or Big Bang Theory. They all just go have coffee with each other every night. I unfortunately see my friends maybe once every 6 months because we all have families, careers, and busy lives.
Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these that you want to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.